Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the Comics with Friends podcast, the bi-weekly podcast where two best buds get together, read a comic, talk about what they love, what they don't like, and maybe tell a few jokes along the way. This week, we are covering Ghost Rider Shadow Country by Benjamin Percy and Corey Smith. What's up?
I'm super excited to talk about this. We've talked about it briefly.
Yep.
Like not in any detail and stuff, and I can already tell I feel like we're gonna have some differing opinions on this.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
So just a little bit of background. I know nothing about Marvel.
Yeah. I don't know much either.
Between the two of us, I do think Mason has a little bit more knowledge than I do.
It's generous.
Yeah. I know X-Men. That's my thing. I just know X-Men.
I mean, I mainly know Spider-Man. That's mainly what I know. Like as far as Ghost Rider goes, besides like Nicolas Cage movies, some of the games he's been in, like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and like maybe snippets of things I've seen on the internet. That's all I know about Ghost Rider.
Yeah, so if you're watching this, you are definitely getting the most bare bones like explanation of who Ghost Rider is.
Well, it's definitely like, okay, two amateurs of Ghost Rider fans is.
Yeah.
Well, fans might be a strong word for you because of how you're reacting whenever I was like, yeah, I like this book. And you're like, I'm excited to talk about it.
I mean, I like Ghost Rider. I definitely, not knowing anything about the character, just looking at him, again, we like right before we started recording, I said, man, the cover of this book is sick as hell. Like,
yeah.
Because we are going over the first two trades of Benjamin Percy's run on Ghost Rider, Unchained and Shadow Country. And we're just going to call the whole review Shadow Country because that's essentially what the whole story revolves around. But both the covers of this book just look wild.
And you got your X-Men.
Hey, yeah, we got
Wolverine.
Well, I think Benjamin Percy was writing Wolverine at the time. I don't think he was working on X-Men. I think he was just specifically working on Wolverine.
I'm throwing you a bone here.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of preamble to get into when it comes to this story, just because, like, again, I'm not a huge Ghost Rider fan. I just think he looks really cool. I know very minor stuff about Ghost Rider, like how Johnny Blaze is technically our first Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
And sorry, I knocked the mic there. And there's Danny Ketch, who came after him because I believe Johnny Blaze died at one point. Mm-hmm. And then there is the Ghost Rider on the horse from like Western times. I don't know anything about him. I only know him from the movie.
Yeah.
With Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll probably talk about it, but then you have the one woman that was, I want to say it's like the French Revolution, or no, it was like witches because they were burning them at the stake. Or whatever.
Either the Inquisition or Salem witch trials.
Yeah, something like that. So there was that one, the cowboy, Danny Ketch, and then
Robbie Reyes, who is the newest Ghost Rider, who I believe he's not even a Ghost Rider. Like, I think they explained that he's not the same thing as them.
Which is weird.
Yeah, again, I don't really know a whole lot about the Ghost Rider mythology. I just know that he is like...
He's a spirit of vengeance.
Yeah, he's a spirit of vengeance. He's just a really cool action figure.
It's yeah, and it's metal as fuck.
Yeah, this... Mason talked me into wearing my Meat Canyon Nightmare Fuel shirt, and he's wearing his Mandy shirt from that Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah, because Nicolas Cage is Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So we've got some metal shirts on. Obviously, you guys can't see it, so I'll probably just throw a picture up of them. So yeah, let's just get right into it. I guess before we get into the story, we'll go ahead and just say... Did we like the book?
I loved it. I thought it was great.
We were talking last night, and because a little game called Helldivers came out recently. Obviously, by the time we post this, Helldivers will probably be old news. But
yeah, servers might be increased in capacity by then.
Yeah, hopefully. But we got on, and the first thing I said to Mason when we got on was, "So did you read it?" And he goes, "Yeah, I loved it." And I went, "That's interesting."
I mean, this is like stuff that's right up my alley.
Yeah,
it's unconventional superhero.
Yeah,
it's a lot darker story. A bit more weird and stuff rather than a lot of other superhero stuff. Mm-hmm. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's
I had a hard time writing notes because I was just like, I kept page turning.
Yeah.
You know, like even if something that I was like, okay, this is definitely noteworthy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to keep going. And like the art, I loved the art. It was really good.
Oh, I love the art too. I think the art's the best part of this book. I do. I honestly do. I think Corey Smith really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it was extremely good. Like all the transformation like panels.
I was telling Nicole about that. And every time Johnny would turn into Ghost Rider, I would go, "What the fuck, Nicole? Look at this."
it was so, and I love the fact that it was never the same. Like it was
different
similar because he's shedding his skin in some way, but like each time it was different and unique, and I really thought that was cool.
So Mason really liked it. It's a mixed bag for me. I really enjoy the first half because the first half is essentially like a haunted road trip. Like the first 5 to 6 issues, it's like a haunted road trip.
A little bit, yeah.
And then in my personal opinion, I just think the second half is just all over the place. That's the best way I can explain it.
I like the second half because that's where kind of the batshit craziness comes in.
The story starts to go into focus, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely is. It gets weird in order to kind of like focus back in.
Yeah, because I think this book was supposed to be them reestablishing Johnny as the main Ghost Rider, because before this book came out, from the little bit of research that I did do for this, it looks as though Johnny Blaze was the king of hell.
Okay.
Before this. Now, on Reddit and forums that I've gone on to do research for this, just to get other people's like side or explanation of the story, it looks as though like either in continuity or in the terms of publication, Johnny was gone for like 2 years. So if you want to say that he was gone for 2 years in world, I would understand that by what happens in this book.
Yeah, because there's definitely moments where people are like, holy shit, Johnny Blaze?
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
Where you been, dude?
Yeah. Especially now, because when Wolverine gets introduced, I believe Hickman has already started the Krakoa stuff, which is where all of mutant kind of lives on the living mutant island of Krakoa, and they're like their own sovereign nation, and they want nothing to do with the outside world. They just want to be left alone. And Hickman's starting to set all of that stuff up. Like Professor X has Cerebro and is walking around.
That's the most surprising part.
Yeah.
Is he's walking.
Yeah. And he's a part of this thing called the Silent Council, which is like a council made up of the strongest mutants ever. So you've got Professor X, Magneto, Mystique, Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister. Like they're all a part of a council.
And Wolverine's just out there riding bike in fucking middle of nowhere.
Wolverine's busy being a thruple with Jean Grey and Cyclops. That's what he's doing. that is not my favorite part of what's going on in X-Men.
All I'm saying is like Jean Grey ain't worth it, Wolverine.
No.
Come on, no.
Well, it's either he wants Jean Grey or he wants his daughter or her daughter from the future.
That's like some Twilight shit with Jacob.
Yes, it is. I imprinted on your daughter.
You did what?
You named my daughter at the Loch Ness Monster? Me and Mason are huge Twilight fans, just so you know.
Oh, yeah. We definitely.
Hey, I like Twilight. Me and Nicole marathon them, and I like them.
I can't take them seriously. But
no, you can't.
We're getting sidetracked. But yeah.
So we start this story. We are officially in the story now. Yeah. We start this story with Johnny Blaze narrating about his life, essentially. He doesn't necessarily have any memory of him being the Spirit of Vengeance or just being the Ghost Rider in general.
He doesn't really remember anything, period, before this accident,
motorcycle
that he
accident,
had. And yeah, so he's narrating. He's in this like therapist, psychiatrist office and everything. He's got this massive scar
on the back
of his head. And
he has these like terrifying nightmares. That's what he tells his therapist.
Yeah.
They're like they're so vivid that they feel real to him. And he's also having these constant visions of this rider, this like
Flaming Skull.
essentially the spirit of vengeance.
And at one point she's like, like, how are the headaches? And he's like, it's not headaches. It's the same headache. It just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And he's like, the only way I sleep is if I drink myself to sleep. And even then, he dreams of himself on a motorcycle in pitch blackness.
Just driving.
Yeah, just driving and not seeing where he's going. And then if he doesn't drink himself to sleep,
That's when he gets the nightmare.
he gets horrible nightmares and he wakes up screaming and shit like that.
Yeah, almost like a soldier with PTSD.
A little bit.
Where he'll wake up and his wife is next to him, because in this he's married to his childhood best friend Roxanne. I can't remember if she's in the Nicolas Cage movies, but
I can't.
Because again, that's the only form of context I have for those. But he almost goes into like a defensive like PTSD mode where he's ready to beat the shit out of somebody.
Yeah, and he even explains, he's like, like, technically my life's like perfect. I have a beautiful wife, I have a kid, I have
two kids.
Well, yeah, he has kids, he has a nice home, he's in a nice peaceful little town.
He's essentially living the American dream,
which is an awesome line.
I agree.
Like, whenever
Roxanne's dad,
when he's at the garage, because he voices this a bit to her dad. Yeah, his wife's dad. His name's Crash.
Yeah, that's his like nickname.
Yeah, and he's like, son, you're living the American nightmare. And he's like, excuse me? And he's like, American dream. And
it's funny because I do have that in my notes. It's just quotes. You're living the American nightmare, Johnny. ... I'm sorry, what?
Which I like when that happens, and with the dog, where it's like he's staring at the dog and it's just showing the dog like barking at him, and then it cuts to that panel of it like being this deformed monster.
Yeah.
And the therapist is telling him to say, hey, say it with me, there are no such things as monsters.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is really dope.
Yeah.
I
really liked that.
I loved through this whole first like chapter that like you could feel this tension of like, you're right there with Johnny. You don't know what's real and what's not. You don't know if he actually is crazy. And like you're kind of leaning on the side of like, okay, he's not crazy. There's actually
obviously,
because you're reading a Ghost Rider.
Yeah, and this is what he does.
Yeah, this is what he does. But at the same time, it's so well written and like portrayed that like genuinely at moments I was like, are they gonna pull the rug out from under me and like him actually not like these aren't actually monsters?
He's just
like,
actually going crazy.
Yeah, like I thought they were setting up to like do a bait and switch of like, yeah, of course they're monsters. He's fucking Ghost Rider, and then be like, nah, he's
just crazy,
insane.
Yeah,
that's what happens when you have the spirit of vengeance in you.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, but then once we got towards like the second half of the issue, I was like, oh no, this is like he's not okay.
Yeah, I really knew something was up whenever the cop approaches him, and just the way the art portrayed the cop, like like shadows over his eyes and everything, like made him seem very sinister.
Yeah, because they basically established that before this comic started, Johnny had a little bit of a life before the crash, or not before the crash, but after the crash, where he's kind of dealing with bouts of violence against people who don't necessarily deserve it, and he doesn't understand why. Like obviously from like a normal world perspective, it's like, oh well, you're just mentally unhinged.
Yeah, and they like sum it up to the crash.
Yeah. And that's kind of the reason why Johnny's also in therapy, is he assaulted this officer, and this officer, he apologizes to him like, hey, I'm really sorry, that's behind me, I don't want to talk about it. And the officer's like, oh hey, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the neighbor's dog. Have you seen him?
Yeah.
I think the dog's name is Yip Yip or something like that.
Something.
It's like an old lady's dog.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm just wondering if you've seen the dog, because she was looking for him all morning. She let him out to, go to the bathroom. And when she went to go check her mail, some of the dog was in there.
Yeah,
It was,
he's like covered in blood and shit.
yeah, and like cut up and ripped
Yeah.
apart and stuff. And Johnny's like, nope,
I ain't seen it.
I ain't seen it.
Yeah, that's instantly when I knew. I was like, okay, something's not right. You know, like I already was suspecting, like, because again, I don't know a whole lot about Ghost Rider as well. I was like, that's why I was kind of on the fence of like, maybe they are just saying he's crazy,
Yeah.
you know, and like, it's like maybe Ghost Rider trying to speak to him of like their horrible, like maybe it's like overlap of Ghost Rider's memories with his, and it's driving him insane or something like that. And but when I got to that point, I was like, okay, I definitely think there's actually something up with this community.
Yeah.
And I had that suspicion throughout the whole rest of the chapter, which I think really helped sell that first chapter for me.
I agree. In this first chapter, we also get introduced to a few characters. We get introduced to, like, outside the town, I mean. We get introduced to Director Crux, who is kind of like the, not leader of the FBI, but he's a, high-ranking member of the FBI. We get met with Agent Wilmer, who is having a conversation with Crux, talking about, he doesn't like that he's getting a new partner. He doesn't like her. He thinks she's weird.
And also doesn't like the fact that there's a supernatural or
Division.
paranormal division in the FBI.
Yeah, because he thinks it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
And, that's when Crux is like, hey, I'm sorry that you don't like it, but that's kind of what we're left with. Because at this point, I don't know what the event was, because, again, I don't really read Marvel a whole lot, or at least modern Marvel. Shield is no more. Shield's gone.
Yeah,
again,
it's dissolved or something
for
like
like
that.
the third or fourth time. Shield's gone, and so all their agents were kind of scattered to the wind and left for the FBI to handle.
Yeah, whether to take them into the FBI or do whatever.
And he essentially tells Wilmer, Director Crux, you're just gonna have to deal with it. And then that's when we are introduced to Talia Warroad.
Yeah. I like her character.
I do too. I think she's really cool. I don't like how quickly her relationship with Johnny developed in the second half of the story.
Yeah.
But I do think she's cool. She's a really awesome concept of a character. But she basically walks in and she's like, what did she say? I need $500,000.
Yeah, she just instantly is like, I need all the money
Yeah.
for the budget.
I need all this money because I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find something. And Director Crux is essentially like, what the fuck are you talking about? You think I'm just going to give you $500,000? And she's like, yeah, that's exactly what you're going to do.
You know who she reminds me of is, a more unhinged version of, I can't remember her name, from Hellboy, the love interest of Hellboy.
Oh, yes. I know who you're talking about.
Where she does I can't remember. That's who she kind of reminds me of.
I agree.
A little bit.
Yes.
A more unhinged version, for
Yeah,
sure.
oh, yeah,
but
obviously.
where it's like you're a normal person, but like you have this weird connection with like the supernatural and things like that.
Let me just say, this first arc, at least the first half for me, gave off a lot of Hellboy vibes. Like maybe to a more extreme.
I didn't really pick up any Hellboy vibes other than that, because kind of like you were saying, like it was like a haunted
Road trip.
Yeah. It felt very episodic to me. And so I was like, I don't really get Hellboy. I mean, like, to each their own. Like, if that's what influence you saw, then I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, for me personally, I didn't get any Hellboy kind of vibes to it. But other than her character, that was just what clicked in my brain.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's perfectly understandable. So after we meet her, we get that line that you were talking about, you're living the American nightmare. He's talking to Crash, and that's essentially it with that conversation. And then we cut to him at home, and he's talking about how things don't feel right. He feels like he's looking at a mirror of somebody who's not actually there. And that's when we start to get the hints that there's something wrong with Johnny, like actually wrong with Johnny. This is where because you mentioned earlier that they were going to do the bait and switch. I think this was the moment when I was reading it where I was like, okay, no, this isn't a bait and switch. There is actually something wrong with him because we see his scar and an eyeball appears.
Well, see, I agree, but in hindsight, I agree.
But you still thought
at the time, I was like, oh, it's just another hallucination or like maybe an artist's interpretation of like something's not right with me, you know?
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it's like, oh, yeah. Like something's messing with his brain.
There was definitely something wrong with him.
And at this time also is when you get the character Zebediah coming into, I did not write down.
Hayden's Falls.
Hayden's Falls, that's right. And that also kind of solidified of like, okay, these things that he's saying, there's a good chance that's what they are. Because when Zebediah comes in, you know, he's got his like shark-like teeth.
This dude straight up looks like an evil bad guy.
Well, here's the thing is as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, that's a fucking demon.
Yeah.
And then later in the story, you're like, oh, that's not necessarily a bad guy.
Yeah, he's not a bad guy. Yeah. But when he rolls up to Hayden's Falls, he straight up looks like a bad guy.
Oh,
he's got the look. He looks like the dude from the Ghost Rider movie Blackheart.
Yeah,
like that movie's version of Blackheart. And I was sitting here like, okay, well, this is obviously the main villain, and like he's gonna stir some shit up, and he's gonna cause Ghost Rider to come back. And when he gets there, he's essentially like, oh, this is like a perfect town. It's picture perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. And it's basically him saying like, I see through this bullshit. You can't trick me.
Yeah.
And he is a part of this order. They establish like I think in chapter 2, they establish that he's a part of this order called the Night Magicians, which are essentially beings. They're not necessarily human because we meet multiple night magicians. Yeah. They're beings that are tasked with keeping the balance between light and dark, which I would assume is heaven and hell. Yeah. Like the supernatural aspect of the Marvel universe. Yeah. So he comes.
I feel like that kind of like is like with DC, you have like Constantine.
Yeah,
it's like kind of like the same realm of like
kind of
influence. Obviously not exact like character kind of like, but like Constantine kind of deals with those types of individuals.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I was getting through meeting the Night Magicians. I'm like, okay, Ghost Rider, he operates in that sphere. So like if Ghost Rider was in DC, he'd have some run-ins with Constantine.
Oh yeah, 100% he would run into Constantine.
Which Constantine's a great character. I love Constantine.
Oh yeah, he is. We will definitely be covering Hellblazer at some point. So Zeb, I'm just gonna call him Zeb because that's what people call him in the book. He rolls into Hayden's Falls and he essentially just dismantles the whole place. He reveals that it's all bullshit. Yeah. And these people, quote, start just killing each other. They're tearing each other apart.
Well, he kind of starts the influence with that kid on the baseball field.
Yeah, he hands him the baseball with like the demon face.
Yeah.
And then, that's when I was like, this guy has to be fucking
evil. Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, oh my gosh, he just had this kid beat this other kid up with a baseball bat. Yeah, I was like, he's obviously the bad guy.
Nope.
Nope. So, that's the bait and switch.
Right? Yeah, that's the bait and switch. So we then cut back to Johnny at his therapist, and he's discussing that his wife is afraid that he's going to start riding again because they still have his motorcycle from the accident. And he's talking to his wife, and obviously they do what they do, and they end up fucking. And the therapist goes, oh, that's hot. What positions do you like?
Yeah, like starts going off out of pocket.
Yeah, like, oh, this is kind of inappropriate to be talking about with your patient.
Yeah, and she's like, nothing's off limits for me, Johnny. And like the whole time, there's that
the painting in the background.
I think it's like a deer or an elk or something like, or some kind of animal.
Yeah,
and every panel you can see a wolf coming into the painting and like starting to.
That's cool. I didn't notice that.
It was super dope. It was like every panel you could see the wolf kind of coming into the painting and start eating the corpse of this dead animal painting. And at the same time, you can tell the therapist is not necessarily a therapist. Like it's still that kind of tension of like, is this a hallucination? Is this, real? And it was just, I really liked that scene. It was super weird, but at the same time, like just visually interesting as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't notice that because I thought it just changed. Like I thought it was normal one moment, and then another panel it changed to that picture.
It's not like subtle change of it coming in. It is, but it's like a couple panels where like it comes in. So it's not, because they only show the painting a couple times, so it's not like oh my goodness, I can see its eyes, and it's like, okay, something's there, and then it's like, oh, that's a wolf coming closer, and then it's finally like right on the corpse.
That's cool. So yeah, Johnny is essentially like, hey, I don't think I should be talking to you about this, and also, what the fuck is up with your painting?
Yeah.
And it's at this point where she is this grotesque, like almost Lovecraftian creature, which I love. I don't know who had say in the demon design.
Super cool.
In this series. I don't know if Corey Smith just kind of went balls to the wall with it. I love his interpretation of demons in this because it is so like it's Lovecraftian in nature. Like he kind of infuses Lovecraftian lore into his demon designs. I do think it gets lost just a little bit in later issues of the arc, but definitely in these early issues they do a really good job with these entities.
And like all the demons you see, they're very varied as well.
Yeah, they all have a different design.
I think the issue you're talking about with like later, I think that just comes down to like time and effort conserving things. Like, you know, like you have in those later chapters, you have a lot of shit going on in your panels. So instead of, you know, going balls to the wall with this demon design, it's easier to make it a little bit more simple. You know, because then you got to deal with like Ghost Rider's flames and his bike and all this other shit going on. That's my thought on it. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's more like an effort.
I could see
time
that
saver kind of thing.
No, I can definitely see that. So he ends up seeing his therapist as this just demonic creature, and he freaks out, and he's like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you," and she starts cowering in fear. I don't know if that's necessarily her still putting on an act, or if that's the demon actually like, oh my God, Ghost Rider's going to kill me.
I think it's both.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of both.
I think it's both because, like, obviously the demon's like, oh shit, like, he might be, like, coming to.
Yeah,
you know, like, and he's going to find out I'm a demon and then just kill me on the fucking spot.
Yeah.
So it's like that, but then it's also like, you're attacking your therapist, Johnny.
Yeah,
you know, like
you're this isn't you, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I think I need to leave. And she's like, that would be best. And he leaves. He rushes home. He goes right past his wife and kids. Starts drinking because I have in here that he is definitely an alcoholic in this first issue. He kicks it pretty quick, but you know, I can understand for this first issue making him such a way. Because he even explains that like drinking makes everything go away. You just don't remember.
It empties you out. Is what he said. Or something like that.
Yes. And then his wife is like, hey, you were scaring the shit out of our kids.
What's going on?
What's going on with you? And he's like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, it's just, I think I'm going crazy. But at the same time, what if I'm not going crazy? What if everyone else is the ones that are going crazy?
Yeah.
And he essentially is starting to be like, no, you guys all think there's something wrong with me.
I think there's something wrong with you.
With this town.
Yeah.
Because all of you are talking to me like I'm a baby.
And then the most like obvious sign that something is not right with anyone, what does she do? She's like, hey, let's go have sex.
Yeah.
That's like her response. And it's like, obviously something's not right about you.
Yeah.
If you're saying, hey, husband, you're scaring the shit out of me. And like, he's like getting somewhat aggressive and violent too, and he's like shouting, and then your response is, hey, let's go have sex.
Yeah, it's just not a normal
response. That is not a normal person response.
Right. It's at that moment that he realizes that when she suggests that, he realizes that she's wearing a ring that he has never bought her. He's never seen it, and he's never bought it for her, and it's this ruby ring, and he's like, where did you get that? It's almost like he's attracted to it for some reason. And she's like, why does that matter? That doesn't matter to what we're talking about now. And he's like, actually, it does, because you're wearing a ring that I've never bought you. And I think she basically says, like, are you accusing me of cheating on you? That kind of deal.
Yeah.
And Johnny's like, I'm not accusing you of cheating, but like,
I've never seen this fucking ring.
I've never seen this ring and you've never talked about it before. And it's at that moment, because I believe she grabs a knife because she's like, you're about to attack me. And then they get a knock at the door and it's Zeb.
Yeah.
He shows up and he's like, oh, sorry, I guess I'm interrupting something. And by the way, that's how I imagine how he talked. He talked like this, like, I'm sorry. And Johnny's wife's the one that answers it, and she's like, you're in no shape to talk to people. And then she talks to Zeb, and she's listening. She's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, we don't want you here, blah, blah, blah. We're going through some shit. And he's like, that's a really pretty ring. He like grabs her. And he's like, that's a really pretty ring. Where'd you get that? Blah, blah, blah. And then Johnny gets involved, and he's like, don't you fucking touch my wife. And he swipes at him. He grabs the knife out of Roxanne's hands and swipes at him. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, blah, blah, blah. And then the cop from earlier fucking hits Zeb dead on, right? And pins him right into a tree. And Zeb's like, oh, that really hurt.
And like, it's depicted as really gruesome too. And he's just like, ouch.
Yeah. Ow, that was bad.
It's like the bullworm from SpongeBob.
Ouch. Yeah. And Johnny walks up to him. At this point, the whole town is here. This is kind of where like this issue kind of goes off the fucking rails.
Yeah. You can see the facade of whatever was going on is like starting to crash.
Yeah. Johnny walks up to him, and Zeb holds out his hand, and he has like this pentagram on his hand. And he's like, the world is crazy right now because you disappeared. Ever since the spirit of vengeance left, it gave all those creatures in the dark permission to come out during the day and do whatever the hell they want. I'm not saying that what you did it on purpose, but it is your responsibility to fix it. And if you take my hand, I will show you everything that has happened while you're gone. And I will give you your life back.
Yeah.
And so Johnny
takes his
hand, even though other people are like, don't do it.
Yeah, like the whole fucking town.
Yeah.
Is in his front yard being like, don't do it, Johnny.
Yeah.
Don't trust him. Stay with us, all this stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like, if that was me, I'd look back and be like, y'all are fucking crazy.
Oh, yeah. And so he takes Zeb's hand and he sees everything. He sees all kinds of just messed up stuff that's happening in the world. And, you know, he falls to his knees and he's like, I don't know if he's necessarily having a mental breakdown, but he is going like, oh my God. And his wife tries to comfort him, and he swipes at her with the knife and it cuts her fingers off. And that's at that moment she like reverts into a demon.
I think I don't know if it's she reverts. I think it's one of those things where that's what they look like in reality.
Oh, okay.
But Johnny is seeing them as like Roxanne and like normal people. That's what I interpreted because I think they wanted to add a little bit to like the fucked upness of it.
Yeah.
When he finally has that realization, like there's one panel where it shows him and Roxanne in bed and she's like in her demon form.
Oh yes, in the later chapter.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like, so I think whenever the fingers get cut off, I think it's finally Johnny's like,
He's seeing through the bullshit.
Yeah, he's seeing the truth and the reality of it.
Yeah. So he cuts her fingers off and he grabs the ring, and essentially all the townsfolk are just repeating things that they've told him before, like, we'll take care of you, Johnny. You don't have to do this. Your life is perfect. You're living the American dream. And then Johnny essentially says, like, no more. I will not be a prison in my own mind anymore. And he throws the ring in the fire, because there is a fire starting, and destroys the ring. And it's at that moment that I believe a fireball falls down to the town. And he just becomes the Ghost Rider again. And let me just say, the transformations in this are so crazy.
So I know we touched on it earlier, but it's so fucking cool.
Yeah. Like every single one is very creative.
This first one, it's just straight up like his skin just melting, and it's not like those depictions of like, you know, like you see of like movies with werewolves and stuff, where it's like, okay, you see him as a person, camera cuts, then you see him again as the wolf or whatever. This is straight up panels showing his skin straight melting off.
It almost, going back to the werewolf thing, it almost reminds me of like Underworld
A little
werewolf
bit.
transformations where
Yeah.
you see their bones breaking and stuff. And then like the Wolfman remake in the early 2000s
Yeah.
where he's like strapped to that chair.
There was a TV show. I can't remember the name of it. I know we're on werewolves for some reason, but
It was just the transformation thing.
I can't remember the name of the show, but like they legit have to like shed their human skin, and it's like kind of off-putting. It's a really cool decision as far as like doing that kind of transformation. I can't remember the name of it though.
There was Van Helsing, which does something similar to that, where his skin just kind of fucking falls off.
Yeah, this one it's like almost kind of gross because it's like, you know how like snakes shed their skin
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It's kind of like that,
Like molting.
yeah, like there's still like all the blood and like it's weird.
It's crazy. And that's essentially what like these Ghost Rider transformations are. They're all wild. They're all awesome. They're metal as fuck. That's the best way I can put it.
The one where he's like coming out of his mouth. Oh my god.
That one is sick. Or like the chains come out, dude. That one is crazy.
Yeah.
So he becomes the Ghost Rider, and essentially everything just goes to shit in Hayden's Falls.
He just starts murdering
Yeah,
demons.
he murders his wife, or the person pretending, or the demon pretending to be his wife. He murders the demons pretending to be his children. He just absolutely devastates them, and he gets his motorcycle that he crashed. He turns it into a fucking Ghost Rider motorcycle, and he gets the fuck out of there. And that's essentially the end.
And it ends with a fucking banger line too, where he's like riding down the highway or whatever, and they've constantly thrown that line of like, there's no such thing as monsters. Like even War Road at one point, they're like, what are you gonna do with all this money? She's like, I'm gonna hunt monsters.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like throughout this chapter, there's like, they're constantly telling Johnny that there's no such thing as monsters, no such thing as monsters. And that last line, he's driving down the fucking highway and he's like, there is such things as monsters, and I'm the worst one of all.
Yeah.
And like,
that
it's
line is
such a
sick.
banger line. I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
that is a sick line. So that's the end of chapter 1. Really strong start. I think it is probably the best chapter in the whole run for this arc.
Enthralled me instantly.
It made me want to keep reading.
Yep.
We get to chapter 2, and this is kind of the start of the haunted road trip that I mentioned earlier, where he's just kind of going from state to state, city to city.
Yeah, because Ghost Rider keeps like hijacking his body.
Yeah, they established at the beginning of chapter 2 that it's not a symbiotic relationship. It's almost as though Johnny is only in control because the spirit of vengeance allows him to. And then once innocent lives are present and in danger, the spirit of vengeance says, okay, you're out.
And he
I'm
just
in.
blacks out.
Yeah, he just blacks out. Johnny has no recollection of anything that happens. And he wakes up either naked or surrounded by dead things. And he's like, oh my God.
Yeah. And we start the chapter with more of War Road and Wilmer.
Yeah.
And they're like kind of on the road and everything like that. And they very much establish that War Road's a bit crazy.
Yeah, there's something not right with her.
Yeah.
Which I can imagine why, because of her powers.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure it's this chapter. I don't have it in my notes, but where they kind of explain her origin a little bit. Or is that later?
That's later.
Later.
I believe
Yeah, yeah.
that's in chapter 3 or 4. Give me just a second. I believe that is in chapter 3. Yes, it is in chapter 3.
Yeah,
It's when he's on that haunted highway.
Yep.
So in chapter 2, that's when he goes to the like log cabin motel in the woods, which I liked that chapter a lot. It's really short in the sense of not a lot happens.
There's not a lot of narrative stuff that happens that necessarily progresses the story. I agree with that. Other than like kind of solidifying what relationship Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze has at the moment. But yes, I really like this chapter too, and kind of, I mean, we'll get there, but bringing back your Lovecraftian kind of monster design, the big monster at the end, and like everything that's happening very much rings true.
Yeah.
With this chapter.
Yeah. So he ends up going to this motel called I think it's called the Cave Inn.
Yeah.
Super funny name, by the way.
Because it's in a mountain.
Yeah, it's really funny. And it looks like
part of an old mining town. And
it's
stuff.
like and it's really cool because the motel is attached to a mine. It's so cool. Like, I kind of wish the whole story just took place at that motel because I think it's cool. Because it's a huge place.
Oh
too.
yeah, it's massive.
It's like I saw it and then they were like, "Oh, it's a motel," and I'm like, "Are you fucking serious? That looks like a 5-star hotel that I'm looking at. It looks like you would go to like the Rocky Mountains or the Smoky Mountains and just chill there for a week as a family."
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if you really want to get technical, they kind of explain that away with everything that's happening there. Because like they do this ritual, and in return they get gems and shit.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Yeah. So he goes to the motel. He checks in. I think right before Johnny walks in, he's narrating about, obviously this. Okay, so let me just say there is one thing that's cool at the beginning, and I think it's tiresome towards the end, where Johnny correlates everything that happens in his life to the highway and the road and riding a motorcycle, which is like, yes, he is a biker. He's a retired stunt devil. He is the spirit of vengeance. So, of course, he's going to make references to riding a motorcycle and being on the highway. They do it in every single chapter. And I think it gets a little annoying after chapter like 3.
I never really found it tiresome.
Okay.
The only thing that I found tiresome with it is when they ended up naming that villain Exhaust. That was the only time when I was like, okay, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But anyway, I never really found it tiresome. I actually thought it was a really good way to filter Johnny's thought process because, again, like, yes, he was a biker, a daredevil, all this stuff. But also at the same time, like we said, he's on this haunted road trip. So he's on the road.
Yeah.
So like it correlates not only with his past, but also what's happening in the present.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he's on a trip to discover who he is. So I never found it tiresome. I actually found it very kind of smart in a way of like, not only are you relating the narration of Johnny's mind to his past and Ghost Rider and all these things, but it's also like the kind of theme of the story is him on the road to find himself again.
Yeah.
So I never found that tiresome.
Okay. So while he's doing this narration at the beginning of the chapter, we are seeing it's almost like a Bates Motel type deal where it is obviously the owner of the motel and he's in these like mine shafts. It's almost as if the motel was built around the mine shafts and there are two-way mirrors. And he is seeing people who have checked into his motel.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Johnny is talking about how like people only present the side of themselves that they want you to see because the real them might be timid or might be angry or, any type of who they really are. Because that's kind of what this whole story is like discovering who you are as a person. Like, are you really the monster that you say that you are? Or has life just really beat you down? And then the owner of the motel finds this family. It's like a husband, wife, and their, child, daughter.
Yeah. The moment I saw those like two-way mirror in the corridor, I was like, okay, this place is not good.
Oh yeah.
I was like, this is going down fucking hell.
Yeah. This place is obviously fucked up because like, I think they established that the spirit of vengeance is trying to lead Johnny towards like the center of this corruption, basically.
And it's also kind of reinforcing what Zeb says, like since you've been gone, like these motherfuckers are just out.
Yeah, they're just doing whatever they want.
Yeah, they don't give a shit whether it's like in the dark or out in broad daylight. Like they're just running rampant at this point.
And we kind of get that in chapter 4. So the owner of this motel chooses this family, and then we cut to Johnny checking in, And the motel owner's like, oh, hey, yeah, I'd love to have you, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he pays the guy for the stay. And I think it's through this, there's like, because there's not a whole lot of stuff that happens. We kind of just find out that the motel is just really fucked up. Like, I can't quite remember what happens exactly to get Johnny to that position or to that realization. I believe the spirit of vengeance takes over.
Well, so he pulls up and he's basically like, look, I have no money. So I will do whatever you want.
That's it. Yes.
I'll scrub toilets. I'll, anything for $1, I'll do it, because I'm broke. I have no money. So the guy's like, yeah, okay. So as he's like cleaning and working around and stuff, he's finding odds and ends of things that are not adding up. Like he's cleaning out a drain and he finds like flesh and like a clump of hair.
That's it. Yes, you're right.
And he's doing other stuff and like, he finds like a tooth. And then eventually he stumbles upon
like a hidden door.
Well, one of the two-way mirrors he accidentally breaks.
Oh,
And
okay.
As he's looking at the shards of glass, he's like,
He sees the spirit.
He sees the spirit of vengeance, and then he's like, what is driving me to go into this tunnel? Like, I know it's not going to end well. Why am I going in this tunnel?
Yep.
So he goes down it, and he's looking through the two-way, and he finally sees that room where it was like the daughter and the family, and there's just blood all over the place.
Yeah.
And he's literally like, oh, fuck. And immediately...
Because he finds the doll.
Yeah, he finds the doll. He's just like, well, shit. And immediately the fucking ghost of vengeance, spirit of vengeance is like, all right, I'm taking over.
I'm in.
Yeah, like tag me in, I'm in.
It's not even a tagging. It's like, you sit in, bitch. I'm going.
Yeah. Like as soon as he saw that, he's like, all right, I know what's happening. Like gonna happen now. And then
And then he ends up finding the ritual room in the mine shaft, and this giant what's that creature from Star Wars? That
the Rancor?
The Rancor. That's what it looks like.
A little bit, yeah.
This Rancor looking fucking demon comes out and just grabs the dad. I'm assuming the dad's already dead by how much blood was in their room, and eats him.
I think they're technically still alive.
That's fucked up.
Which is weird because you're right. There's a lot of blood.
Yeah, and he's like unconscious.
Yeah.
But the wife and daughter are still awake, and they see essentially husband/father just get eaten in, bit in half, and that's when the Ghost Rider shows up, and the owner's like, "What the fuck? You're not supposed to be back here. What the hell? You need to get out of here." And Ghost Rider points at the dude and says, "Repent," and he just breaks his own fucking neck.
He points and goes, penance.
That's it.
And then just, he's like, cracks his fucking neck.
Breaks his own fucking neck. Yeah. That was metal as fuck, and it was awesome. And then in my notes here, I have that he sees the monster. He sees that there's a gem on the top of this monster's head. And then he picks up a pickaxe and turns it into a sick-ass Ghost Rider pickaxe. And this is where I found out that Ghost Rider can just turn anything into a Ghost Rider weapon.
Yeah.
I thought he could only do that with vehicles.
No.
Like I thought he had his vehicle, he had his motorcycle, and he had his chains. I thought that was it. No, he can fucking turn anything into a cool Ghost Rider weapon because he turns that shit into like a scythe.
Yeah.
Like a handheld scythe. Cool. It is awesome. And he rides around this mine shaft, and he basically one-shots this monster. Like it's not even like a fight to him.
That's one thing I realized reading through this. I was like, oh, Ghost Rider is like super fucking strong.
Yeah, it's almost like, why are you not a part of the Avengers?
I can see why.
Like, why? Obviously, I can see why, because he like kills people.
Yeah.
But it is definitely like why hasn't Captain America come down to you and say, hey, you should probably join us. We need you.
Hey, I think this giant purple alien's gonna fuck us all up.
I need you to penance stare his ass.
Because he's definitely sinned a lot.
Yeah.
Unless heaven and hell don't apply to aliens in the MCU,
Which is bullshit.
Which I don't understand how that works, but
yeah. So he kills this giant creature, this giant demon. Now I don't know if they established that it's a demon or just a monster. I'm gonna say it's a demon.
I think it's a demon, but they explain kind of like what's happening at the hotel through like
narration.
Yeah, through Johnny's narration. And so it's coming from a point of view where Johnny doesn't necessarily know what it is, but they're just like, they dug and they found something that's beyond ancient.
It's almost like the Mines of Moria from Lord of the Rings.
A
Like
little
the,
bit.
like the Balrog.
Yeah, it's like, they discovered this thing that was beyond ancient, and in return for blood, they could get all the, like,
The riches.
the riches of the earth and stuff like that. So, like, it started small. It started with, like, animals and things like that. Maybe the odd homeless person.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has some, like, baller lines in this whole narration, too, where it's like, and then it started to get bold. The shadows started to whisper that it's okay to come out in the light and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever he goes and kills it, he's still narrating, and he's just like, the shadows lied, and like things like basically saying, no, they're wrong. They're not coming out in the fucking daylight. Like, I'm back. And just some baller fucking lines.
Yeah, Ghost Rider has some of the coolest lines I've read in a comic in a long time. Like
It's,
they are
it's just metal as
he's
fuck.
he's like the most metal person you could ever come across. It is cool. So at the end of that fight, or during that fight, Ghost Rider, ghost rode it up, and he set the whole place on fire. And he leaves. He just gets out of Dodge. He makes sure that everyone is safe, because I don't think anyone else died.
Yeah, he got all the innocents out.
Yeah. And by the time he's like long gone, but Wilmer
And
War Road end up at the scene while it's on fire. There's firemen and police officers everywhere. They're talking to the daughter and the mother, and they're like talking about the Ghost Rider and how
Yeah, the
like
flaming skull.
yeah, all that kind of stuff. And Wilmer's like, oh, it's just a fire, blah blah blah. What's the whole point? And War Road's essentially like, no.
Yeah.
We're onto something, and she sees a trail of fire leading off into the distance, and she's like, "I will find you."
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned it, but like she was having, like, in chapter 1, she was having, like, when she was introduced, she was having visions of the Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
And she initially is assuming that Ghost Rider
Is the
reason bad things are happening.
Yeah.
So she thinks, oh, that's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then, so she's been having these visions, and that's why she's been hunting Ghost Rider rather than, like, other demons or monsters or whatever. And then I think it's chapter 4 or 5 or.
Are you talking about when her and Zebediah?
Yeah.
It's somewhat in chapter 4, and it's definitely in chapter 5.
Yeah. And so she sees the flaming trail, and it's like, we're on his heels.
Yeah, we're coming.
Yeah.
And that's the end of chapter 2. Very quick chapter. Like when I read it, it was very quick.
It was only like a couple pages. It wasn't.
It was a full comic. But the thing is that like they don't bog down most of the like the first half of the comic with dialogue. They just really want you to see some badass art and some badass fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool because I think the comic severely lacks that towards the second half of the book.
I think the only like real like reading is the narration.
Yeah.
In this chapter.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think 95%, if not more, is just narration.
Because I really think besides Johnny asking like, "Hey, can I do some work for some money?"
And then the War Road stuff at the end.
And the War Road stuff, and the tad bit of like the ritual motel owner or whatever saying like a line or two.
Yeah.
And then that being it.
Yeah.
The rest is narration.
Yeah. We open chapter 3 with Johnny along this stretch of highway. It's kind of like in the woods a little bit. It's in the country. And he's essentially talking about how this road is cursed. He just goes straight in. He's like, this road's cursed. There's so many people that die on it.
Yeah.
And he starts talking about things like bad luck and how you can avoid bad luck by passing it on to somebody else. You know, that kind of deal. It's some weird like extra like external stuff. Basically, it's stuff that I don't necessarily understand, but it's supernatural. So whatever. He ends up finding this dude because he's trying to get a ride. He's holding his thumb out, and this guy stops and he gets in. And let me just tell you, this is the weirdest fucking person I think Johnny could have ever stumbled across on his journey.
Literally, the moment you get in that car and you look at this person, it's like, oh, I'm dying.
Yeah, I was like, if it were me, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
This guy is so fucking weird. And they start, they're talking about the curse of this highway and how many people have died, and then they start talking about this demonic semi truck. It's like Maximum Overdrive. That Stephen King movie, and this semi truck just has a mind of its own, and it kills people. And then we cut to this graveyard. I don't think they give a specific place to this graveyard.
I can't remember.
But they introduce Alabaster, who is a high-ranking member of the Council of Night Magicians.
Yep.
And he calls a council with Zeb and 2 other night magicians. I don't remember their names. I just know that one turns into a wolf and the other one is made of worms.
Yes.
Which was fucking weird.
Oh, what the fuck?
I don't think they even give names.
No, I'm blanking on Lord of the Rings. The guy in Isengard. What the fuck is his name?
Grey Worm? No, that's not it. Worm Tongue.
No. In Isengard, the wizard.
Oh, Saruman.
Yeah. See,
He looks like Saruman.
I was like Sauron. No. That's the main.
That's the main bad guy.
Saruman.
Yeah, Saruman.
Yeah, that's what Alabaster looks like.
Yeah.
100%.
Just
Christopher Lee.
Yeah, he just looks like Christopher Lee in a white tux.
Yeah,
and a cane.
Yeah.
That's it. 100%. I'm glad you brought that up. So he summons them all, and essentially Zeb is like, we have finally got Johnny Blaze out of Hayden's Falls. He's on his way. He's getting closer to the heart of all this corruption. I feel as though we need to just push him a little bit further into the right direction so that way we can stop what's going on. And Alabaster cuts him off and instantly is like, no, we've done enough.
Yeah, we're not doing anything else.
Like, we've already gone against the council's wishes by doing this. And Zeb is sitting there like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
The council wants this. And that's basically where we end the conversation, because Alabaster is 100% a bad guy. Like, it's not even hidden. Like, he is 100%. He has drunk the Kool-Aid and he is on the enemy's side. Because at this point, they haven't revealed who the enemy is.
Yeah, they haven't quite, like, they don't actually show off, like, oh, Alabaster's bad until the second volume.
Oh, yeah, during chapter 6.
Yeah, but it's this moment where you're like, huh.
Yeah.
You definitely, you look like Saruman.
Yeah.
And you're not being very helpful when it seems you're supposed to be helpful for Ghost Rider. Yeah, you're probably bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we catch back up with Johnny. This book, I will say, does a lot of jumping around between 3 different perspectives. Johnny's perspective, Zeb's perspective, and Talia's perspective. Because they are essentially the 3 main characters of this book. And so in all the issues, we essentially get every single person's perspective. And then by the end of it, they do all converge into one story.
Yeah.
So we jump back with Johnny with this fucking weirdo.
He screams serial killer.
Yeah. He pulls a deviled egg out of his coat pocket.
It's got like hair and lint on it.
And he just starts fucking eating it.
At first he's like, you want an egg?
Yeah, and Johnny looks at him like, no, you fucking weirdo. I don't want an egg out of your coat pocket. That is the funniest thing that happened through this whole book. That shit was so out of pocket, off the wall. Like, I was not expecting it. And the guy's like, well, suit yourself. And he just starts fucking eating the egg. Yeah. And then that's when he starts talking to Johnny about, this road's cursed, but you can avoid the curse if you pass that curse on to another person. That gives you a little bit more time. And Johnny's like, all right, you fucking weirdo. I don't know why you're telling me this. And they nearly get hit by a semi-truck that is coming up behind them. And, Johnny takes over the wheel because he's in the passenger seat. And he's like, holy shit, dude, look out. And the truck passes by him and the guy freaks out. He's like, don't ever fucking do that again. And he's like, I'm sorry, whatever, dude. And then a little bit of time passes, and then they stumble upon that same semi-truck, and it's crashed into another person's car. And the semi-truck driver's fucking dead.
Yeah.
And there's dead sheep everywhere. The truck is on its side. And Johnny's like, oh my God, we have to help people. And the guy, it's at that point that the guy reveals that he's a serial killer.
Yeah, which was a little weird.
It was a little odd.
I was like, okay, it's okay to have this guy be like super weird, but I think throwing in the fact that he had bodies in the trunk.
Yeah, because he pulls a gun out.
Yeah.
Johnny sees it. He's pretty badass. He smashes the dude's fucking face into the horn. The guy shoots his gun, which causes the trunk to open up. 'Cause I don't know what he hits, but it just causes it to open. And you see the bodies in the back. And I agree. It was such a weird twist because it was almost like
It was
adding another layer to it that kind of didn't need to be added. Like
you could have just had him be weird.
yeah,
Like
you could have still killed him off.
Yeah.
because they do kill the guy. Because Johnny beats the shit out of him. He gets out of the car and he runs towards the wreckage and he's like, I have to see if anyone survived. And it's at this moment that the serial killer tries to drive off, and then the demon semi truck shows up, hits him, and tosses him off the cliffside, presumably to his death.
Yeah.
The guy probably 100% deserved.
Yeah, it was like a sheer cliff.
Yeah,
too.
and you see all these bodies falling. It's like 5 bodies falling out of his trunk. Like, damn, that's a big ass trunk.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what kind of car you got?
My Malibu can't hold that much shit.
I don't know. If I cleared out my Camry trunk, I could fit some bodies in there.
That shit was crazy. So the truck's there. Johnny sees that someone survived, and it's at this point the truck is coming towards him. He's trying to save them, and he begins to become the spirit. He pushes the guy out of the way, and he tells the guy to run. And then the spirit of vengeance just rips Johnny in half, and he comes out, and it is the most badass thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And back to the pickaxe thing. He touches the truck, and it turns into this badass Ghost Rider semi truck. It is so fucking cool. And then he just crashes into the truck.
And as presumably like destroys the demon truck.
Yeah. We then cut to a diner, to Talia and Agent Wilmer. And essentially, Warroad just turns Wilmer into like a fucking science project where she breaks down everything about him, and she says like, you know, you do this, you do that, you're a very organized person, you put everything in alphabetical order, you don't like your food touching, that kind of shit. And Wilmer is like, why are you so fucking weird?
Yeah.
And that's when she explains her backstory.
And also he's like, how do you know this? And she's like, oh, I just broke into your house.
Oh yeah, I do like that where she's like, oh, I know that stuff because I broke into your house.
Yeah.
The other stuff is just, you know, I'm weird. And that's when she reveals a little bit about her backstory. And she says, you know, ever since I was a kid, the shadows talked to me. They scared me. But later on, I realized that, you know, I am a shadow.
Yeah.
Like she essentially says, like, I'm a fucked up person with fucked up powers. And now I use those powers to stop monsters from causing a mess.
Yeah.
So we go over that. Johnny destroys the semi truck, and we then cut to him walking along the highway again, just thinking to himself like, I don't know what else to do. I don't have a bike anymore. I don't have a car. I don't know where to go. And then he gets this thing in the back of his head that says Shadow Country.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the fuck was that? And he's like, oh, well, I guess I'll just keep going this way. Basically, the thing in his head is manipulating him to go towards a certain direction. And then you see the scar smiling.
We haven't really talked about it a lot, but throughout all these chapters, he's having these weird moments with that scar on his head.
Like it'll bleed.
I think at one point, like you kind of see like maybe like some like tentacle like things kind of hanging out of it.
Yeah.
The eye, whenever what was it, chapter 1 or 2?
Chapter 1.
Yeah. So like weird things have like this scar is like kind of like this haunting force that's been following Johnny Blaze around the entire time.
Yeah. And then we get to chapter 4. We start with Johnny, butt-ass naked, laying in what I hope is his own vomit in a gas station bathroom.
Yep.
oh my God, it is one of the most disgusting things I have seen in a comic.
I'm pretty sure it's his own vomit because
he's like laying in it.
Yeah,
and it's all over the toilet seat.
He says something about like whenever the rider like leaves, it's like a hangover times a million.
Yeah.
You know,
he just does not feel good, and it's specifically during this time that it's getting like this, and it's because they've established that the Ghost Rider or the Spirit and Johnny just
they're not meshing.
They're not meshing. They don't belong together. They don't work together.
Yeah.
So he comes to, and there's this guy knocking, saying, hurry the fuck up, you asshole.
Of course, it's just a random biker.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume Johnny beat up a Nazi because that's what this guy looks like.
Yeah,
he looks like a skinhead.
Yeah.
And he beats the dude up. Takes his clothes, just so happens to fit Johnny perfectly, and it's a part of his aesthetic.
Yeah.
The guy had keys in his pocket, and he had
a sick motorcycle.
All black.
All black.
Because that's what Johnny needs. And Johnny's like, cool, I'm out. And it's like, oh, wow, real superhero of you, fucking Johnny.
I wouldn't call Ghost Rider a superhero.
No, he definitely is not. He is not a hero. I wouldn't even consider him an anti-hero.
Yeah, he's that's one thing about like comics in general, like when it comes to like superhero comics, when you start dealing with the supernatural stuff, I like the fact that it's no longer like, oh, I'm a hero. It's like either you're with the demons or you're not. And I think that's why I'm more drawn to stuff like that rather than, the more baseline hero stuff.
So he ends up stealing that shit from this biker. And then we cut to Talia and Wilmer again. So I forgot to mention in chapter 3, they left that diner that they were sitting at, and Talia's car was completely destroyed because she drives around a hearse. That's like her thing.
Yeah, with like flames on the front.
Yeah. It's covered in bird shit. There's feathers everywhere. Obviously, it was Zeb.
Yeah.
Because at this point, Zeb and Talia think that they're on the opposite sides. And they end up going to a mechanic. The mechanics are like, wow, your car's really fucked up. And that's when she's like, yeah, I need your shop. And they're like, get fucked, you crazy bitch. That's not happening.
Yeah, and then she's like, here's a shit ton of money. Let me use your garage.
Yeah. She's like, you'll never have to work again. Bye.
Yeah.
You can retire now. And she starts this ritual circle. She cuts Wilmer's hand as a blood tribute. And it summons Zeb. Essentially so she can interrogate him.
And let's not forget, she licked the like crow shit off one of the feathers.
Dude. Let me just say, Talia, goth GF, that's fucking disgusting. That was so fucking nasty. So she
summons Zeb.
She summons Zeb. And essentially, Zeb is like, I'm not telling you shit. You'll just have to kill me because I'm not telling you anything. And that's it. That's all that we see of Talia, Zeb, and Wilmer for that entire chapter.
Yeah.
Because then we cut back to Johnny, who is walking into a town that is completely empty.
And he even mentions like this is like the third or fourth one.
Yeah. He doesn't understand why these towns are all empty. And then he picks up like a flyer
for the circus, and
all right. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. The flyer he picked up was for the Circus of Fucking Crime. At first, I was like, who the hell are these people? And so I looked it up because later on, Johnny talks to them like he knows them. The Circus of Crime was created in the 30s. They were Captain America / Hulk villains in the 30s and 40s. And they have not been used since.
Hey, that's cool.
Wild.
That is fucking cool, though.
Wild that they pulled character. They're not even like D-list villains. We're talking about like Q-list villains.
Yeah. But still, it's super fucking cool. And
it is cool. It is awesome that Benjamin Percy obviously knows his shit.
Yeah.
Like he knows who these people are.
And also gives them a valid reason to still be alive and like normal age.
Yeah.
All this time later. It's because of fucking demons.
Yeah. Well, see, it's weird because he encounters him. He's like, this isn't you.
Yeah.
Like, you're not, like, you don't kill people, which is like bullshit, but whatever. So he finds out that it's the circus of crime. It probably has something to do with these people going missing because he goes to a few more towns.
Yeah,
and he
and
finds
they all
the
have
flyers. And then eventually he gets to a town that has the circus in it still. They haven't left yet. And we cut to all the people in this town going to the circus, and they are still performing like shows.
But they're killing themselves to do it.
Yeah, the civilians are getting into these shows, and you have one like fat dude, like fat old guy who gets on the like trapeze thing, and he swings, and then he just lets go and then falls to his death.
And then you got like, it's kind of quick, almost like montage-y of like all the different shows. Like there's one where a woman puts her head in the mouth of a lion, and then it just fucking chomps on her fucking dome. And
The clown car.
where
all the people get into the car and get crushed to death.
Yeah, and then you got the fire breather who sets a bunch of kids on fire.
Yeah, this book does not pull punches. I told Nicole while reading this, like, I am surprised this is a Marvel book.
Yeah.
I don't know how this got approved.
I mean, because it's fucking Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I think they're just making the assumption that kids don't read Ghost Rider. Like, these are adults that read this fucking character.
Yeah, I think it's like when someone's gonna read Ghost Rider, I think because of just the character design itself, it's like you're going into a darker side
Of the Marvel
universe.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But yeah, this fucking fire breather sets these kids on fire and like just a bunch of crazy shit going on. I have highlighted in my notes because I don't like clowns. In my notes, I just have "fuck the circus." Like that is like highlighted, bold. Fuck the circus.
Yeah. Johnny shows up, and at this point, the circus has taken the civilians that aren't dead and made this like crazy looking like giant golem thing
Of all their bodies.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I can't tell if they're dead or not because there's something Johnny says.
Yeah.
Because he shows up, the golem's there, and you know the ringleader, I think his name is Ringleader. I think that's his supervillain name. Ringleader tells the golem to kill Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider says like, "No, you will not kill me. Go back home."
Yeah. And then it just leaves.
It just leaves.
Yeah.
So I don't know if those people were still alive and their bodies were just contorted magically contorted in a way to make this golem, because it's not like it's one person. It's like a collection of people. Like you see their arms and legs and faces.
It's very distorted.
Yeah, like if these are people who are still alive and they're just possessed by demons, when they get home, they're fucked. They're all gonna die because they're all like just mangled.
I don't think they're still alive. I think those were the corpses of people, because I think by the time Ghost Rider gets there,
They're all dead.
They're all dead. So I think it's an
Amalgamation.
yeah, of all the corpses that were made during
And
the
like he's
show.
essentially telling them, go back to your towns, and
I think it's more like go to the other side, essentially, like leave.
guess.
And that's the way I interpreted it.
it's just very confusing.
because all the eyes
Black.
are blacked, like if they're possessed or whatever. So I think it's more like when he's saying go home is like you don't belong on this plane of existence or something like
guess.
that. Like go. That's the way I took it, because you never see it again.
No,
You don't-
it doesn't come up for the rest of this arc. It's very odd, because why wouldn't Ghost Rider just set it on fire and kill
destroy
it?
it.
Yeah.
I think it was because he's like, technically you all are innocent.
I guess.
You know, like I don't think they were possessed by a demon or anything. I think it was just magic that was like controlling it. And it's like you are innocent souls that are under the influence of a demon.
Yeah.
So again, like you said, it's weird. You don't see the golem again. You don't see what happens after the fact. It's definitely like a weird moment, which I think is kind of like you just got to interpret it for yourself and come up with a headcanon, I guess.
I guess this is kind of where the story starts to fall apart for me just a tad bit. Like this was the first inkling. Chapter 5 is where it really starts to like go off the walls for me. So he tells the golem to leave. It leaves. And then he looks at the circus of crime members, and he's already beaten them. Like it's like he one-shot all of them. But they're not dead. And Ghost Rider sits there and he talks to them. Like the Spirit of Vengeance says, like, this isn't you. Like you don't hurt people like this. And then they turn into demons and then they turn back to normal. And they're like, no, you're not normal. This isn't you. That kind of deal. And then it just ends. Like,
Yeah.
I don't quite understand like why it ended that way.
I definitely think this is the weakest chapter throughout the whole book.
Yeah, like the fight ends. Let me just say that the
Yeah.
fight ends, and I'm going back over notes, and I'm also going through the comic as well, just to make sure we didn't leave anything out. Yeah, he tells them that, you know, this isn't you. You don't hurt people, and they say like, no, Johnny, you're not normal. And then he starts to black out, and he thinks it's Ringmaster like hypnotizing him, and then no, it's not. He ends up waking up on the highway. And it's at that point he realizes, like, I didn't black out because of Ringmaster. I blacked out because there's something wrong with me. Like, there is actually something wrong with me. And Johnny, you know, he touches the scar and it's bleeding. And he says, like, I think I know why the Spirit of Vengeance won't interact with me. I think it's because I'm compromised.
Yeah.
And then the Spirit of Vengeance, you know, hearing that thought in Johnny's head briefly takes over. And he inscribes a message on the highway in like hellfire saying 3 days, Hell's Backbone rally, ride or die. And that's how the chapter ends.
Going over this moment with the Circus of Crime, I re-looking at it, I think I got the gist of it, right? I think the way the panels and the conversation is happening makes it a bit confusing. But so like he's looking at the Circus of Crime and he's saying, I know you, but I don't know you. Saying like, and then it shows him in demon form.
Yeah.
I think when it shows him in demon form and he's saying, this isn't your way, you're not yourselves, he's still talking to the Circus of Crime and he's coming to the realization of, oh, you're demons. That's why I know you, but I don't know you.
Oh, okay.
Because like you're the Circus of Crime, I know you, and this isn't how you do things. And then he's coming to the realization, oh, you're demons.
That's not actually
the
Okay.
Circus of Crimes.
Okay.
And they're
yeah.
talking to him, being like, well, neither are you, Johnny. And he's questioning, well, maybe it's the Ringmaster's hypnosis or whatever.
Yeah, 'cause he's starting to black out.
I think it's starting to talk about that scarring
Yeah.
and being compromised
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everything like that. So going back over it, I think just the way the paneling and the dialogue bubble was, it gets a little confusing because it's showing them as demons, but I don't think Johnny necessarily sees them as demons yet until he's like, you're not yourselves.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So
And I guess we can just make the assumption that because I'm going to assume the Spirit of Vengeance took over. He killed them.
yeah.
Just because we don't see what happens to them. That is a huge issue with the second half of this book, where something will show up and then they will just cut to the next scene, and that thing that showed up in the previous scene has already been dealt with off panel. I do not like that. I absolutely despise it.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Because I think it's very much leaving the imagination up to the reader of what happened. And I think it allows a little bit of interactivity with the reader of like, well, how would I imagine Ghost Rider dealt with them? You know, like kind of things like that.
That's fine. I think it's more egregious towards the end of the arc where you get the villain fights, like the main villains, because they kind of do the same thing. But we'll get into it when we get there. We open with chapter 5. Johnny is kind of going from motel to alleyway, motel to alleyway. Like he's essentially just a drifter at this point, which has kind of just always been Ghost Rider's thing, from what I can tell. And he'll occasionally turn into Ghost Rider. This is where that badass scene of Ghost Rider's hands coming through his mouth and then, like ripping him apart, that kind of deal. Really awesome. And then he'll wake up the next day and he'll steal clothes off of a clothesline. That kind of
just
shit.
kind of showing his daily routine at this point.
And it's at this point that he does arrive at Hell's Backbone. Let me just say, this is the chapter that killed this run for me.
Really?
It is.
I thought it was dope.
I have seen very mixed opinions on it.
I really, granted, it took me off guard when I was like, holy shit, that's Wolverine. Holy shit, like I know that person.
Yeah.
Like all these different characters.
Yeah, and let me for people listening, let me just say, obviously I'll put a picture up. So this is a race. The whole concept behind this race is that all these characters from across the Marvel universe, or I guess from Earth in the Marvel universe, have come together to compete in this motorcycle race. And if you win, you get to hold a meeting with the devil. And I'm going to assume he's going to grant you a wish.
Essentially, you get to make a deal with the devil.
Right. Which, who the fuck would do that?
I mean, like, you got fucking Bullseye from Daredevil there.
Yeah.
Like, wild shit like that.
The characters in this race, just some of the ones that you can kind of see. There's Blade, Dracula,
Morbius.
I don't think Morbius is in.
I thought I saw. Oh, maybe
it's actual Dracula.
Yeah.
Rhino, the Spider-Man villain, which I was like, what the fuck? Johnny Blaze, obviously. Doctor fucking Doom, which I've seen some people online say that's not Doom, it's a Doom bot, but we don't know because we never find out.
Yep.
Man Thing, which some people are saying it's not Man Thing, it's Thing Boy, which is Man Thing's like sidekick or something, which no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's Man Thing because I do know Blade and Man Thing are kind of like buddies. Moon Knight, Elektra, Daredevil.
Yep.
So because I believe at this point in Chip Zdarsky's
They're both.
run,
Yeah,
they're both Daredevil.
Yeah.
Wolverine. I believe Squirrel Girl, but I could be wrong. And Black Widow. I don't know if I'm missing any other. Kraven the Hunter.
Yep. Fucking Scarecrow, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know who this guy is, but he looks like Scarecrow from Batman. What looks to be like an Iron Man type character. He's got like green and gold armor, and he has like an arc reactor on him. Essentially, that's like the whole lineup of this race. Absolutely wild. There is no way in hell that this race would happen. All of these people would try and kill each other.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You kind of make peace if you're wanting to get a deal with the devil, I guess. But the thing is like they're all, wanting to do this race because they think essentially it's like a genie bottle, right? You get one wish.
Yeah.
But Johnny is literally like, if I know anything, when you make a deal with the devil, it hardly ever works out in your favor.
It's like monkey's paw.
Yeah, exactly. Like you might get what you want, but you're gonna be the one losing in the end.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
Yeah. So right before this race starts, we cut back to that.
I also think Taskmaster is here.
Oh
too.
yeah, I think he is as well. Wild. So we cut back to that mechanics garage in I think it's in Idaho. That's where the garage is. And they are interrogating Zeb. Now, here's a little bit of an issue I have where they have this. I'm going to assume Johnny's story and Talia's story do not take place at the same time. We're just seeing it from their perspective.
I think they take place similarly.
But it's not exact.
I don't think it's exact like day to day.
Yeah.
But I think it's like within the same
couple
weeks.
Because Johnny got to Hell's Backbone in 3 days. There's no way she's been interrogating Zeb for 3 days.
Right.
So we go back to the garage and she is interrogating Zeb. And she's essentially like, I know you're working for the enemy. You're trying to you're trying to basically spread this corruption. And Zeb is like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, lady. You're crazy.
Yeah.
And if anything, you've done nothing but prove to me that you're working with the enemy. And he starts to basically break free out of this binding spell, and he starts causing mayhem because he can like control ravens and shit as a part of his abilities. And then Agent Wilmer cracks him over the fucking head with a crowbar.
Yeah.
And Talia's like, "Wow, I didn't expect that. Like that was very cool that you snuck up on him and were able to take him out." And that's when Wilmer's like, there's a lot of things you don't know about me.
And then he turns into a demon.
He turns into a demon, and then he fucking attacks Talia, and then it cuts.
And before he gets knocked out, I think Zeb, they like connect minds or something like that. And and that's when Zeb kind of realized like, oh shit. He even says to her like, I don't think we're actually on opposite sides.
Yeah, that's
and
when
that's
they
when
start to-
and that's when Wilmer knocks him out.
Yeah.
And I assume that's probably why he revealed his demon form, because when he talks to Alabaster in the next volume, chapter 6, you know, he's like, why did you bring him here? And he's like, they were finding out that, you know, they weren't enemies.
It was the only thing I could do.
Yeah.
Because the moment Zeb got free, it was like a matter of time before he went to the council and basically revealed the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Because at that point, he was already kind of suspecting Alabaster.
Well, yeah, he was being sus from fucking day one.
Yeah, from the moment he appeared on screen. So we go back to the race. And just chaos ensues. Like, these characters are just fucking each other up. Like, Dr. Doom, like, blasts someone in the fucking face at some point.
Well, you can very much tell, like, obviously none of the obvious characters, because in between all these lineups of villains and heroes or whatever, anti-heroes, there's just random schmucks.
Yeah.
That
there's like normal people.
that look like, you know, bikers and things like that. And so all those characters, all the normal gangoons and things like that, they're getting fucked up, eaten by like these shadow puddles and things like that.
Real quick, just as a little side note, if I was just a random person and I saw that Bullseye was in this race, I'd be like, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out. He's gonna snipe me with a paperclip from like a mile down the road.
Yeah.
Like, this ain't happening. And then you got Rhino, and it's like, what the fuck are you gonna do against that?
Yeah, these people will find me after this race and they will fucking kill me if the devil doesn't.
Yeah, basically. But they needed cannon fodder.
Yeah, they needed cannon fodder to make these characters look cool. And then halfway through this race, that's when Johnny comes across Wolverine, and it's Wolverine. Of course, I love it.
And Wolverine's literally like, holy shit, Johnny? Like,
Where the fuck have you been?
Yeah, where the fuck you been, dude?
There's so much shit that's happened, and Johnny's like, it's too much to explain.
Yeah,
I don't fully understand it myself, but like, my only thing is, I need to get to the end of this race to figure out what the fuck is going on. And Wolverine essentially is like, okay, I'm down.
Yeah, I'll help you, which is dope. Total bro move.
Yeah. Wolverine essentially is like, the devil can make 2 deals.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, me and you will go to the end, which I thought was cool. Like, I really like that. You know, fuck Black Widow and all the other superheroes.
Even Johnny in like some of the narration, you know, he eventually is like, me and Wolverine are actually a lot alike in the way that like we're trying to
erase the sins of our past.
Yeah, exactly. Like, make penance, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool.
I agree. I think their relationship is cool. It's kind of disappointing that Wolverine just kind of disappears after issue 6.
Yeah, but I feel like if he hung around,
Detract.
it would detract from this being like a Ghost Rider story, in the sense of, like I said, this theme of him trying to find himself and like rediscover who he is and who Ghost Rider is. So I think it's cool that he was in there. And also just like this supernatural stuff isn't really Wolverine's world. So unless I feel like, I mean, they do some shenanigans. Like, you know, he puts Hellfire on Wolverine's claws and things like that. I don't think it would make a whole lot of sense if Wolverine stuck around, because I don't think this is really the world he operates in. And like I said, I think it'd detract from this theme a little bit.
Okay. And then at some point during this fight, you kind of mentioned it earlier, where these puddles, where it's almost like somebody is trying to stop Johnny from completing the race. It's specifically Johnny, and Wolverine notices, and he helps him out, and it just goes absolutely wild. The sun gets eclipsed.
Yeah,
it turns into like
huge loop de loop.
Yeah, it's like a demonic Hot Wheels track. Yeah. It's just so crazy looking. Demons are flying through the air. Motorcyclists are getting fucking killed left and right. Surprisingly, no superheroes or villains get fucking killed during this. Yeah, they're. I wonder why. And then Johnny he gets into an accident. Some villain shoots him. His motorcycle gets destroyed.
I think it's Bullseye. Knocks his tire out or something like that.
Maybe. He hits his head where his scar is, and his scar opens up. And at that point, that's when the fucking tentacles start coming out. Yeah. It's like a demonic centipede-looking tentacle. It is just the most wild shit ever. And he's like freaking out. And then Wolverine comes up.
He's like, dude, are you okay?
Yeah. He comes up. He stops. So it's not Bullseye. It's some like it's some villain I've never seen before. He's like made of all metal and he has like a skull head.
Are we sure that's not Taskmaster?
I don't know. It doesn't look like Taskmaster. He's wearing like a do-rag.
That is true.
He's wearing like a do-rag on him. Either way, Wolverine takes the dude out. He picks Johnny up and he's essentially like, you got to hold on, Johnny. You got to hold on. We're almost at the end. He gets through to the end of the race and Wolverine is essentially like, woo, that was crazy. Ain't that right, Johnny? Good old buddy, old pal of mine. And he looks back and he's like, oh my God, Johnny, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Johnny is covered in this black sludge and demonic tendrils. And it's
like peeling at his
yeah,
face, like,
it's just so wild looking. And it's at this moment that we finally find out who the enemy is.
Yep.
They reveal that the person who orchestrated the race and who orchestrated Johnny's capture and manipulation was Blackheart.
His, like, one of his go-to.
It's essentially his main villain.
Yeah.
It's like, it's his Joker.
Yeah.
It's his Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how chapter 5 ends.
Which I have to say, I am a huge fan of Blackheart's design.
You like it?
I like it a lot. I've always liked it. That it's one of the things that really broke my heart about the Nicolas Cage movies.
Yeah, he's just a dude.
Yeah, he was just a dude, and he had one moment where like his face fucking shifts or something like that.
Yeah,
I was like, nah, throw that whole demon ass motherfucker in there.
Yeah,
but
and that's the end of chapter 5. That's the end of book 1, which again is Ghost Rider Unchained. Mm-hmm. I'll say overall that first half really good. I did like it.
I loved this volume. Like I said, I think chapter 4, the circus thing, was definitely the weakest. But also looking at it hindsight a little bit there for a moment really helped kind of, I think, bring it up a little bit. But I definitely still think...
Well, once you explain that you know, how he's viewing them part to me, it fixes it just a tiny bit, but not completely. Because you still have the issue of like the golem and stuff like that.
I think chapter 3 and 4 are definitely like the weaker ones out of the other chapters. Like we said, chapter 1, super strong.
Yeah, I think it's the strongest chapter.
Super, super strong.
Chapter 2,
good.
Great.
Yep.
I think 2's great.
It's with the cave in and like all the weird shit. I really liked it. It had a lot of action. It was definitely like Ghost Rider can fuck some shit up.
Yeah.
3's like, again, like there's some weird choice decisions with like the serial killer and things like that I'm like,
the
like,
semi truck part was cool though.
Yeah,
where he
that was
turns
dope.
he turns the truck wreckage into a Hell Rider truck.
And again, we talked about Blood Circus, the whole weirdness with that. I think maybe that's like some paneling issues and like pace issues there. But again, kind of looking back at it a little bit, definitely raises it up some. Not nearly as confusing, but again, like the golem, what happened with that? Is there just a limbed out human corpse golem roaming around now and stuff?
And then I know you liked chapter 5 a lot.
Yes, I thought it was cool.
It was just too wacky. It felt like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon that like I was watching, which is funny because I think there is a Hanna-Barbera episode, like cartoon episode, where all these goofy ass fucking cartoon characters get together and they race each other.
I can see that, but I really liked it because it's like, you know, it's kind of reinforcing this, like, in my brain, this is how I process the chapter of like, you know, what would you do if you could have whatever you want? You could make this deal with the devil. And it kind of reinforces this like idea of like, well, Ghost Rider's not around. Mm-hmm. So all these evil things can like fester and like grow and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of shows this like willingness to deal and dabble with the darkness
Things
to
that you
get,
don't understand.
get what you want. And hence a reason why, because like Blackheart wouldn't be running this race if Ghost Rider had been around.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like showing all these, even heroes, villains, everyone's willing to deal with the devil to get what they want. And it just goes to show this kind of like darkness or possible potential for evil in the world. And I think it sells that idea of the necessity of Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'll say that the only part I think I wouldn't agree with is like the heroes that are involved. Because like you have Blade and Black Widow and Wolverine. Wolverine I can kind of understand because he is a character who is defined by his past and his lack of knowledge of it. and the bad things that he's done. Because I mean, he was a part of Weapon X, he was a part of X Force, all that kind of stuff. Black Widow, I can kind of understand again because she used to be a Russian, spy. Blade, he's not a bad guy. Like,
Well, here's the thing, right? It's that whole idiom of,
maybe he just wants to be human.
the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
I guess.
So it's like, even if they're heroes and they're doing it for a good cause, like say Blade's like, I want all vampires to cease to exist. That's his deal with the devil. I'm doing it for humanity, but it's like you're willing to deal with the devil. No matter how good your intentions are, you're willing to deal with the devil and darkness and evil to achieve this goal. That's why I think it shows this potential for everyone,
I guess, yeah.
to, deal with evil, rather than having, like, you have Ghost Rider who's like, I don't give a fuck about what evil has to say. I'm destroying evil.
Yeah.
That's why I like that.
And I will say, to the book's credit, Blackheart explains why he held the race at the very end. Like, he explains it to the reader.
Yeah.
So I will give the book credit in that sense, where it's like, once you read it, it doesn't seem too crazy that a race was had. It's just for my own personal taste, for this, what the story was setting up.
Yeah.
It felt too goofy for me.
What does he say? It's like a trap for Ghost Rider or something?
It's at the end of book 2, at the end of volume 2, Shadow Country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's the end of book 1. Book 2 immediately opens up. Wolverine has Johnny kind of in tow, like he's carrying him around. They get to this bar, and Wolverine is essentially like, I need everyone to leave now.
Yeah, and everyone leaves except the bartender.
Yeah, the bartender pulls a gun out, and he's like, you're going to get the fuck out of my bar, mutie. And at this point, because I don't know if you know this, but right now in X-Men, the X-Men kill people.
Yeah.
Like, they straight up do not care anymore. They will fucking kill people. I hate that, by the way. Let me just say, that goes against everything the X-Men stand for, but I understand what they're trying to do. Wolverine pops his claws, and he points it at the bar owner. He says, you're going to leave now. And the guy said, yeah, I'm out. I'm gone. And Wolverine says, good on you. And then he grabs 2 beers.
Yeah. And then he essentially performs like fucking surgery,
brain surgery on Johnny, which is absolutely crazy.
That I think Johnny, like, he puts, I can't remember if Johnny puts the flame on his blade, like he's like, here's hellfire, or did he just light the alcohol?
So what he does, Wolverine's like, 1 for me, 1 for you, and he essentially says like, all right, Johnny, this is gonna really hurt, but from the way I'm looking at it, there's a good chance you're gonna die anyways, so like, this might be a mercy. And Johnny's like, you have to kill me. Just fucking kill me. Like, I don't want this. And Logan is just like, I'm not going to kill you. You're a good man. There's no point in killing you. And then he starts to rip out the demon from the scar. And he tosses it. And then that demon ends up crawling up somebody's leg, because there is a drunk, like, truck driver there, like, big fat drunk guy. And it crawls up the leg. And Johnny... Logan says, like, I'm sorry, Johnny, I don't need you right now. I need the spirit.
Yeah.
I need him to come out. And Johnny's like, I don't have the ability to just bring him out at will. And it's at this point that possessed truck driver grabs these, like, saw blades that are hung up on the bar walls and throws one into Logan's back. And let me tell you, Logan... He ain't got no time for this. He runs up to the dude and just cuts his legs off.
Yeah.
He essentially is like, I told you to leave. Bye. Whoosh, cuts his legs off. And then he gets the idea. He grabs a saw blade and gets the idea. And he's like, I'm really sorry, Johnny, but I have to do this. And then from the way the panel is compositioned, they don't show it, but they show Wolverine doing the action. I think he takes the saw blade and, like, peels half of Johnny's face off. Because when you see Johnny next, like, half his face is fucked up.
I think because he starts talking to the spirit.
Yeah.
He's like, Johnny's innocent.
Yeah.
Like, you've brought him into this world, and you're all about saving innocence, and you could be saving Johnny right now, but you're not.
You're inactive.
Yeah. And I don't know if he's like hurting Johnny, he might be
He's essentially trying to coax out the spirit.
Yeah, I think he did it knowing full and well with the spirit being inside Johnny, he'd be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can understand the paneling, and that's a little weird, where it doesn't quite
Line up.
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, I'm assuming this is what's happening, all this stuff like that.
So eventually Logan is like, I need you to come out. And the spirit of vengeance just comes out.
Yeah.
He comes out and he
essentially purifies.
Yeah, he essentially purifies him. He gives Logan the flaming, the hellfire.
To kill like the parasite.
Yeah, and then he stab, because Johnny reveals that like it's not just in my head, it's everywhere. And he like shows him his stomach, and his stomach's like bulging, and there's obviously like shit trying to get out. And then Wolverine just cuts it out of him.
Yeah.
And then the spirit of vengeance fully takes over. They have a fight, like a little bit of a fight.
Yeah, because Ghost Rider is pissed.
Yeah, because like at the end of the day, Logan's not innocent.
Yeah.
Like he's done some fucked up stuff, but Logan's like, if you kill me, you'll never, like, I won't be able to save my friend, essentially.
Yeah.
And the spirit's like, fine, you get a pass on this one. And then you know, he helps Johnny. Johnny's like back to normal, and they walk out of the bar while it's burning down, because everywhere Ghost Rider goes, everything burns down, because he's just a big flaming dude. And in between that whole sequence, we are getting little snippets of Alabaster.
Yeah, and Zeb and Talia.
Yeah, because at this point, their stories have collided. And Alabaster is essentially like, cool, well, I know you kind of fucked up by revealing yourself early, but Blackheart will reward you. Our master will reward you.
Yeah.
For bringing them to me. And Alabaster is essentially like, I'm going to kill them now. And that's when Zeb wakes up, and he's like, oh, no, you fucking don't. You Saruman-looking motherfucker. You are not going to be the one that kills me. And then he takes Alabaster's cane and stabs him with it.
Yeah, just straight through the chest.
Just straight through the chest.
Dude, my whole thought was, whenever that scene happens, I was just like, oh, the Council of Night Magicians or whatever is bad. Oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, if they were trying to throw that as a twist,
Yeah.
I don't think they actually did, because it was way too obvious that something was up with them.
Yeah.
But that was my thought. I was like, you got to name the Council of Night Magicians, and you got motherfuckers looking like a pile of worms from Rick and Morty. And
That's where it's from. Yeah.
And, you know, like a shapeshifter, fucking Saruman, and
A crow
crow demon dude.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're not good? Like,
Yeah.
I'm really shocked.
Yeah. And essentially Zeb takes Alabaster out of commission temporarily. He wakes up Talia, and he tells her like, hey girlie, I used to think me and you were on opposite sides, but now I know we're working towards the same goal, and that's the preservation of life. I need you to leave and find Johnny Blaze.
Yeah.
You need to track him down, and you need to help him, because the Shadow Country is coming. Essentially, that's like the big thing, is the Shadow Country.
Yeah.
That's Blackheart's huge
plan.
That's all he calls it, is the Shadow Country. And he tells her to leave, and at this point, Wilmer is charging at him. This is one of my favorite scenes. He just picks Wilmer up, doesn't even like struggle, and then fucking cracks his back over his knees like he's Bane from Batman, and I think just kills the guy. Like, I think he's dead. And Talia runs out, and that's when Zeb and Alabaster are about to have a fight, and then it cuts, and then we don't see anything else from their fight for the rest of the issue. And the issue ends back on that trucker dude that got possessed by the parasite. His legs cut off. He's obviously dead.
Yeah.
And then his skull splits in half, and then something starts to crawl out. And that's the end of that issue.
Yeah, and Wolverine and Johnny are walking away from this burning bar.
Yeah.
And there's this line where he's like, you know, my body feels raw and hollow, scraped out, but it's my own. And I think this goes to show, like, he's, for the most part, he's healing, because he does say, like, even though I'm healing, like, he's still not 100% like knows who he is or his past and things like that. I think he knows more, but he still needs to like find himself still.
This is where we get into the part of the story that, I kind of fucked up a little bit, because I read the arc online.
Yeah, and I read the physical.
Yeah, because I bought the physical books, and I let you read the physical books. There's a chapter in these books that is required reading that I did not know. It's called Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. I did not read it. Mason read it, and he knows what happened. So I'm going to have to let him cover this part.
Yeah, it's this chapter.
So Wolverine is gone at this point.
Yeah.
They're not together.
Yeah, after the chapter with Wolverine and stuff like that, Wolverine's not seen again.
Yeah.
They've parted ways, and it seems like time has passed for a minute.
Yeah.
And so Johnny is like on the road, and he's still trying to figure out, exactly who he is and things like that. Like, he remembers more, he feels himself more, but him and Ghost Rider are still kind of out of sync, right? Like, so he goes to this kind of supernatural tattoo artist named Necro, and he's bald. He doesn't have eyes or anything like that, and he's a creepy looking character. But his whole point is, like, he's this magical tattooist, and he's all about, like, weaving these tapestries of stories and things like that, and bringing out memories and, like, finding the past. And he's almost like a time kind of individual that deals with, like, time. He's essentially a seer in a way.
Yeah.
So Johnny finds this tattoo artist, and he's like, Necro, he's talking to Necro, and he's explaining what he's trying to do. And he points out, like, for a tattoo artist, you don't have any tattoos. And he's like, oh no, I have plenty. They're just not on the outside. And he sticks out his tongue, and he's got, like, this symbol of some kind.
Yeah.
It's like an eye. And he, is, like, basically insinuating he has the inside of his body is tattooed somehow.
Yeah, that's wild.
But he starts going to work on Johnny Blaze, and, like, when he's tattooing him, I can't quite tell if he's causing the tattoo gun, like Necro is using magic so it looks like fire when he's tattooing, or just by puncturing Johnny's skin, it's like fire's coming from his body.
It's like the spirit is reacting to it.
I think it's the first one, though, because, like, he's still getting inked up.
Yeah. So
I think it's more like Necro is using magic to tattoo on Johnny.
Yeah.
But they basically just start going through the history of like Ghost Riders, like different iterations. You have the one from, like, the Salem or Inquisition, then it goes to the cowboy. Jimmy Underhill is the cowboy.
That's the one from the movie, I think.
I can't remember. It's been so long.
He's got the flaming horse.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen those movies. But yeah, Jimmy Underhill is the cowboy one. And there, Necro's kind of explaining the whole, like, purpose and idea of the spirit of vengeance back to Johnny. Basically trying to get Johnny on board of the idea of being the spirit of vengeance again, and, like, being okay with it. Like, the whole point of this is to try and get that, like we mentioned earlier, that mesh between Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider again. Because that's kind of like they're out of sync still. And so, he's talking about the cowboy and, like, his kind of showing his origin. And then it goes from him to Danny Ketch.
Yeah, the second Ghost Rider.
Now, I am a little confused at this part, because I can't quite tell if this is happening at the moment, or, like, because we talked about the fact that, Ghost Rider disappeared or was, like, the king of hell or whatever for a while.
Yeah.
I can't tell if that is when we see Danny Ketch and he's talking about Danny Ketch, that it is happening while he's gone,
Yeah.
or as of right now when, like, say Johnny's getting his tattoo and stuff done, because it shows Danny looking for Johnny.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's supposed to be while he's gone.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Yeah, just because I didn't read the issue, because I did not know that I had to read that issue.
Yeah.
It might make sense that he's looking for Johnny at that time because of stuff that happens at the end of this arc.
Yeah.
Like the reveals at the end of this arc.
I think I would agree. That's kind of my assumption, is it's while Johnny was gone that whole time, like 2 years or whatever, because it makes the most sense.
Yeah, because in that period of time, from what I can tell, the only Ghost Rider that had his own comic and was being written about was Robbie Reyes, the Hispanic kid with the muscle car.
But basically, like, the whole Danny Ketch thing, it's showing him looking for Johnny, and really, like, what a lot of these showing these versions of Ghost Rider is just like, it's just showing kind of like the different versions and like what they not necessarily are about, but like just kind of like a snippet of like who they are. There's not like any huge like deep importance to this run's like overall story, other than the fact that that Necro's just trying to be like, this is what Ghost Rider is all about.
I think that might also be Marvel's way, because this was technically supposed to be like a soft reboot for Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Like a jumping on point, which obviously, you know, my opinion on jumping on points, they don't exist. And this was Marvel's way of essentially saying, like, if you know nothing about Ghost Rider, here you go.
Yeah.
This is everything that you need to know. Here's all the Ghost Riders. Here's all the lore behind it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so like you go from Danny Ketch, and it cuts back to like Necro and stuff, and he like the entire time there's like moments where it cuts back to Johnny being tattooed, and you can see like this tattoo tapestry being
It's kind of like he's tattooing what he's talking about.
Exactly.
Like they're both happening at the same time, and it'll show, you know, Danny Ketch, and at the same time he's like talking about Danny Ketch, and at the same time he's tattooing Danny onto Johnny.
Yeah, and then we go from like modern, which they do bring up Robbie Reyes at one point as well. But then we start going into like more futuristic versions of Ghost Rider.
Yeah, kind of like the 2099.
Yeah, and stuff like that, and showing them like, you know, it's essentially, to me, it's like, oh, Ghost Rider was and always will be. You know what I mean?
It's
like the spirit of vengeance never dies.
Johnny Blaze is only one of many hosts.
Yeah,
and it's not like he's going to be the only Ghost Rider. Eventually, he will die.
Yeah, and yeah, so like it shows Robbie Reyes, and you know, then it cuts to the future, which this Ghost Rider to me looks fucking dope because he's got like a chainsaw arm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like it looks so fucking cool.
Yeah,
but yeah, so like it and that's the last Ghost Rider that's shown, I'm pretty sure.
I think that's the whole chapter. It's essentially just Johnny. At the end, he gets his memory back.
Yeah, essentially, it's just basically like, okay, you are Ghost Rider once more.
Yeah.
And it's just saying, like, you know, Ghost. I feel like I keep saying the same thing over, but the whole chapter is just like Ghost Rider was, is, and always will be.
Yeah.
Spirit of because there is always evil. So the spirit of vengeance
never sleeps.
Never sleeps.
Yeah.
You are just one in it's like the Avatar.
Yeah.
From
Last it's just a really fucked up avatar.
Yeah, just a really fucked up avatar that's only a firebender or something like that. But
a flesh bender.
Yeah.
Because he is just a fucking monster.
He can bend flesh so well, he just has to say one word, penance.
And the dude breaks his neck.
Yeah, and then you die. But it's like that, you know, like you're just this long line of Ghost Riders.
It's really cool. I will say, like, because again, I didn't read it because I didn't know that was in the volume. I read it all online. It does add a lot of context to some things that happen in the future. Now, I will say the chapter does not fix the issue of Johnny and the spirit do not mesh right now. It's setting the pathway for them to fix it, but I essentially, the way that it's explained is that Johnny needs to fix it himself. People can't fix it for him.
Yeah, essentially. But yeah, so then it cuts to the next chapter.
Yeah, we are back into the main Ghost Rider title now. That was like a one shot that they did.
Yep. And so now we're back at that kind of fire. A little bit of time.
At the bar.
At the bar. And this is where I mentioned earlier, I was like, you know, I don't find the whole highway bike riding kind of analogies tiresome until this very moment when that little like parasite thing
that crawled into the drunk driver.
And then started like coming out of that guy's dome.
Yeah.
It takes the corpse of that drunk guy.
Yeah.
And basically takes like its muscle and like bones and makes this villain that is it calls himself Ghost Rider's shadow.
Yeah, he's essentially like the evil that lies within Johnny and the spirit.
Yes. And they name him Exhaust.
That's a stupid fucking name.
Which I like, part of it I get it, because like his chest and like back,
it's an engine.
It's an engine.
It's a motorcycle engine.
And instead of producing flames, he produces smoke and exhaust.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a bit too on the fucking nose for me. Like I don't know what else you could name him. Maybe like Smog or something. I don't fucking know.
Or just you could call him Shadow.
That's true. But
granted, that might be a little generic. I don't know. I would have preferred him not exist at all.
I don't mind him existing. I just don't like the fucking name.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, it's too on the nose. And
that's how the chapter opens too. It's like we meet him.
Yeah.
And I don't think they even call him Exhaust at the beginning. It's just a narration by Johnny.
Yeah.
Just talking about random shit again, about how his life's a highway and he wants to ride it all night long, that kind of shit. We do see him in a diner after we are introduced to Exhaust. These waitresses are pouring him coffee, and he's talking about the coffee, how like coffee's so black, it's like it was dug up from the dirt of a grave, that kind of deal. And you see in the smoke of the coffee the spirit's skull, which is a cool visual.
Yeah.
He is still somewhat plagued by visions of demons and stuff, but he makes the comment of like, it's getting better.
Yeah.
It's starting to get better.
And specifically the demons they show in that panel are of the demons that he had seen in Hayden Falls.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a cool little touch. Like, you got like the one that looked like the therapist, the one that kind of looked like his wife and his kids, and Crash, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And then randomly, I mean, it's not random, but like it felt random, and I think it was supposed to, because she had finally found him. But War Road shows up. Talia shows up
as a waitress. So which leads me to believe that she either knocked out the waitress that was helping Johnny at first, or she killed a waitress and stole her fucking outfit.
I like to think that she just like fucking
yoinked one.
No, I think she just yoinked an apron and told, kind of like the garage people, was just like, here's a shit ton of money, go take a smoke break.
Leave. Yeah.
Yeah, like take a smoke
Come back in 30.
Yeah. And so that's what I think happened. But yeah, she just, with a fucking pot of coffee in hand,
Oh, no. Hold on. I'm actually looking at the panel right now. I'm going to correct myself. It's not weird, because when they show Johnny leaving, she's looking out the window. Her reflection isn't her. It's the waitress that was helping Johnny, that was serving Johnny when he got there.
That is true, yeah.
Okay, well, hey.
That makes sense. Well, she's also...
Comics with friends. We pay attention to every little detail.
Yeah, we're super, super knowledgeable about all our comics. We're definitely not like, we don't make mistakes. No, we don't forget things.
Okay, that's actually kind of cool, and I like that.
Well, it
doesn't
also
feel as random now.
Yeah, it doesn't feel less random, and it shows her abilities with supernatural stuff.
That's cool. I liked that. So yeah, he leaves. We cut back to the burning bar, still burning, and even the cop makes a mention like it's been burning for like hours at this point.
Which makes me to think it's like a whole hellfire.
It's
thing.
supernatural. Yeah, it's not normal. He's trying to call it in, and the dispatcher's like, okay, well, we'll have so and so come in. What do you think we should do? And then Exhaust finds the guy, spews exhaust smoke into his mouth.
And it like bubbles and boils him inside out.
It is the most disgusting fucking thing I've ever seen. Where he like starts to bloat. He looks like a fucking poxwalker from Warhammer 40K.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he is being possessed by a demon from the warp. He explodes, and then another demon comes out, and that's when we get the name Exhaust.
Yeah.
And then Exhaust takes the policeman's car and then just drives away.
Yeah, and he literally says, he's just like, yeah, like clone thing, keep spreading our darkness. You're a shadow of a shadow.
Yeah.
Which is a cool line,
Yeah.
but it's also at the same time like this whole thing just felt like an excuse to give Exhaust a mode of transportation.
Yeah, because obviously he's a Ghost Rider thing, so he needs to have a car just like Ghost Rider.
But my thing is like, why make this clone when you could have just killed the cop and took his car?
Yeah.
I think the clone like shadow thing is a bit.
It's a little weird.
It's a bit excessive. Like I get it, you're an evil entity, so just keep spreading evil. But
And I will say, Mason and I have not read the rest of Benjamin Percy's run on this.
so it'll probably come into play possibly.
Yeah, because I believe the run is like 21 issues, and this first 10 just covers the first arc
Yeah.
of his run. And he is still writing Ghost Rider. I believe next month in March, or at least at the time of this recording, next month in March, they're relaunching Ghost Rider with Benjamin Percy still writing it, and it's going to be the tagline is "Who is the next Ghost Rider?" and it shows Johnny Blaze standing in the Ghost Rider's mouth, like the Spirit of Vengeance mouth.
Okay.
So just a little tidbit. So yeah, he leaves. He takes the cop car. We cut back to Johnny's perspective, and he's at this motel called the Red Eye Motel or Red Eye Inn, and he's like, I don't understand why I'm so fucking tired. That like I've never been this tired after being taken over by the spirit, and that's when they reveal that War Road drugged his coffee.
Yeah.
And she roofied his ass.
Yeah, basically. And then handcuffs him to the bed.
Hey, hey, Johnny might be into that. Let me just say. It is kind of funny because you mentioned about the tattoos and stuff that he got from this person.
And they're not here anymore.
They're not here, which just makes me think that those tattoos just either disappeared or it's just an art inconsistency.
I think it's just the method of the seer.
It's like a metaphor almost.
I think what it does is like he is drawing the stuff out, and while he might be tattooed there, while he might be tattooed in that moment, I think it's like just a method of him being a seer and pulling this kind of knowledge and information out.
Okay, yeah.
But again, like, for all I know, I only am assuming that chapter or whatever is a necessary read because they put it in there.
They put it in the actual volume.
Which volume.
To me, would make it, required reading.
So
in my personal opinion.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Because your online version doesn't have it.
Well, that's because that was a one-shot called Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
Yeah.
This is just Ghost Rider 2022.
Yeah, so there's a chance that that might not be required reading.
Maybe.
That one shot.
Maybe.
So your criticism of it kind of being not like contextually making some sense could still be valid.
Yeah, maybe.
My assumption was with that being in there, because I'm not a huge comic reader, so I don't know necessarily how they do formats for physical copies and things like that. I assumed that was required reading for the rest of this arc.
Maybe.
But even if it's not, it makes sense in my head and made me enjoy the issue even more. So
I was gonna say, when you told me that it was in there, and I went, "What the fuck are you talking about?" and you explained it to me, I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that kind of like fixes a little bit of like some pacing issues that I had. It doesn't fix the story, in my opinion, but it does fix a couple things." So back to this. So she handcuffs him, and she essentially she's like talking to him, but obviously he's knocked out, so she's just talking to herself. And she essentially explains like, "I can see everything that you've done. I can see the dark parts of your soul.
Yeah, she says, "Give me all your poison," and is like basically showing all the
stuff that
events.
happened.
Yeah, from the previous chapters. Yeah.
Shows the fight with Wolverine, shows the race, shows the fight with the circus, shows him crashing into the semi, fighting the cave monster. And then that's when she reveals the big bomb, because again, the last time we left with Johnny, he was the king of hell.
Yep.
And she says, like, you were the king of hell, and kings are beloved by all and hated by some.
Well, yeah. So looking at the actual, and every king is beloved and every king is hated.
Yeah, that's it.
You were hated indeed by Blackheart, and that's revealing like the whole like
he's the one that caused this.
Yeah, he's the one that's causing all this problem.
Yeah. And then she basically begins to like fix his shit using her powers.
Yeah.
And, we get a little scene of Johnny with his wife, Roxanne, and then it's revealed that, like,
the demon.
Yeah, Blackheart used the things that Johnny wanted most in life as a way to coax him into being complacent.
Yeah.
And,
like, infecting him.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And essentially, Johnny wakes up after 2 days, because she said that Johnny's been out for 2 days. He's like, hey, you're hot and all, but are you gonna uncuff me?
Yeah.
And she's like, that depends on what you're gonna do next. And they essentially just have this conversation of like, Johnny's like, I'm a monster, that kind of deal, and she's like, oh, you're not the only monster.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
I really like at this point, after that whole like her digging in his mind, we finally get this like the clear vision of what probably, like everything that happened in the first chapter and everything. Like, we finally now have a clear picture of Johnny's story throughout kind of this run, this arc, which I like earlier after chapter 1, whenever everything was revealed, that like these are all demons and stuff. There was like this, with all that tension of like, is this real? Is this not? You feel probably what Johnny felt as like this sense of relief of like, okay, like this is the truth.
Yeah, it all comes together.
I think with this moment, with her kind of clearing up the whole story, the whole picture, you get that kind of that same moment Johnny probably is having as he's figuring himself out of like, this is the truth. I've been wondering what the truth is and everything like that. I finally see the picture. And I think that's really cool personally, that like the storytelling so far has been able to make you feel things that Johnny would be possibly feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt that way at all, but that's how I felt at certain moments in this run.
Not, I don't know.
You feel like I'm stretching a little bit?
No, because everyone experiences stories differently. I just don't think this story was my cup of tea.
Oh, this was right up my fucking alley, man.
Which sucks, because I think Ghost Rider is a cool looking character. And he has cool powers. Yeah, I mean that all comes down to like, that's how you're perceiving the story, and I don't think that's a wrong way to perceive the story. It's just I don't perceive it that way, and I felt like the writing felt rushed. Like they were trying to get to an end goal, and I'll kind of talk about my feelings on that when we cover chapter 10.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying with the whole rush thing, because there are moments, where I'm like,
It doesn't feel complete.
It feel like we'll get into it later, like with some of the final like fighting.
Yeah.
With like Blackheart and stuff. Yeah. But there are definitely a little bit of tinges, at least in this moment, where I'm like, okay, I can see maybe a little bit of a picking up of pace because we're reaching an end for this run.
Yeah. So, she has that conversation with Johnny, and then she reveals that she's got this huge like conspiracy board of supernatural shit, because it's all over the walls. You can see the red threads going to different places all across America. And then at the end of chapter 7 or issue 7, we go back to Hell's Backbone, where Blackheart is there, and all the people who won the race or made it to the finish line with the race is there. And that's when Blackheart reveals his like plan that he wanted basically everyone who won the race was going to be a sacrifice.
Yeah.
For this ritual. Now, I will say his ritual I'm not really understanding. I'm assuming he's trying to have a massive like human sacrifice ritual happen so that way he can rule Earth, like not hell but like Earth itself.
Yeah, he's basically, I don't know, I don't think it's necessarily a sacrifice ritual. The way that I had uh interpreted it is like, he's getting people who survived the race and stuff, and is like, you are going to help usher in this shadow country, this darkness, because why rule below when I can rule it all?
Yeah.
Yeah. And because eventually it shows all the different like important figures being infected with these
in
parasites
chapter 10.
and things like that. So I think it's less of like, you're going to be sacrificed to like in a ritual. I think it's like, he's like, you've made it this far, I will give you everything you desire because you can help me take over the world, essentially. That, and he's like, like, you don't, because everyone that it shows that survived the race, I don't see a single hero among them.
No.
Yeah. And I think probably Blackheart designed the race to where heroes wouldn't win.
Yeah,
and
because
things
then
like
that's just
that.
another thing he has to contest.
Yeah, I think he made it to where this race would find the most like vile or evil people that would support his claim.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And so he's like, and they're like, you don't even have to worry about the Ghost Rider because I own his shadow.
Yeah, and then they obviously Exhaust is working.
Yeah, Exhaust shows up and everything like that. And yeah, he basically just explains, it's almost cliche that it's just like a take over the world plot. But at the same time, like, what else is a demon gonna fucking do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's already technically king of hell because he got rid of Ghost Rider.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think they say that he's the king of hell. Like he just got rid of Ghost Rider, so there technically is no king of hell right now. Like he doesn't take over the throne.
I think he's in a position where he can. I think that's why he says, "Why rule just hell
when he can rule all
when I can rule all of it?" So I think he's in a position to take over, and then so yeah. So basically, he's just wanting it all. It's a simple enough plot point of like, I just want to rule the world, but you're a demon.
Yeah.
What other goals do you really have?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
fucking people's lives up. That's about it.
Yeah. And what's the best way to fuck up everyone's life? By taking over the world.
Yeah.
So it's cliche and maybe a bit too simplistic, but I think it works perfectly fine for Blackheart.
Yeah. So at this point, Johnny and Talia are full on working together. They're still at the motel, and Talia's trying to make sense of like why there are all these fucked up things happening across America. And then Johnny is like, he takes the pictures down and then he organizes them in a way and then creates a burning pentagram over it to kind of symbolize like each point of the star represents where the activity is
happening
most concentrated. Yeah. And he essentially says that the places that are being affected are areas that are essentially forgotten by humanity. Not in the sense of they're abandoned and overgrown with wildlife and stuff, but it's more of like Chicago is a city that they go to
where like massive amounts of sin and things are happening.
Yeah.
Also,
they're the forgotten places of the world.
Yeah. Also, they're like places with a lot of like individuals too.
Yeah. Because I think Savannah, Georgia is one of them where like Talia basically says like Savannah, Georgia is a necropolis.
Yeah.
And like there's so many people that die there.
And I think that's maybe where like this whole ritual thing, because like, it's the points of a star. So I think like these, where all these people are and souls and things where like, crime happens and stuff. I think that's why I don't think the Hell's Backbone winners are like the fodder for whatever ritual Blackheart's doing.
Yeah.
I think it's the points on this kind of pentagram on the map
Yeah.
of where things are happening. I think that's the source for it.
Yeah, I can see that. So they make this pentagram, and then Johnny basically says like all of this is going to come to a head in Chicago. So they're packing up and they're going straight to Chicago. There is a little bit of an inconsistency here that I don't quite understand, because they go to Chicago and then they immediately end back up in Utah.
I'm gonna be
Like
honest
at the
with
very end of the book to fight Blackheart in like seconds.
I think there's probably implied a time jump, unless they get portaled. I'd have to look at the panels again.
We'll get to it when we get there. We cut back to the graveyard that Zeb was in, because we haven't seen Zeb in like 2 issues.
Yeah. And it shows Saruman dead.
Yeah. Alabaster's head is on the ground being pecked at by some crows, and that's when Worm Boy shows up, and the wolf, or no, the wolf girl isn't
Shown up
there
yet.
or she has shown up, but she's gone.
Yeah.
Worm Boy shows up, checks on Zeb, sees that Zeb is alive. He won the fight against Alabaster. And they find the wolf girl in a mausoleum, basically, where she was chained up by Alabaster, because I guess she had found out what was going to happen. And then that's when Zeb finds the mural painting of Blackheart, and that's when he discovers Blackheart's behind all of this.
Yeah.
And he corrupted Alabaster. On the way to Chicago, Talia and Johnny find that there are animals kind of stalking them as they're driving along.
Yeah.
They're keeping pace, and they eventually almost get, they run over a dog that's on the road.
Almost, yeah. They
Yeah.
miss it. And Johnny's just like, stupid thing. Like, what the fuck is it thinking?
Yeah.
And Talia's just like, oh, it's not. It's doing exactly what it's supposed
Yeah.
to.
And then that's when they reveal the fleshless fucking bear that runs out.
Yeah, roided out fucking dude, it's so fucking big too.
Yeah, it is massive. And then all these animals have their flesh ripped off their body, and they're running towards the hearse. And Johnny's essentially like, oh my God, we need to get the fuck out of here. And Talia's like, oh, don't worry about it. This car is built like a tank. And then it immediately gets fucked up.
Yeah. Well, there's just so fucking many of them.
Yeah, the windshield gets shattered, and there's these deers trying to gore them with these antlers, and they're just being chased, and all these fleshless birds come down and start just pecking at them and trying to kill them. And eventually Johnny's his hands, or Talia's trying to get Johnny to
Ghost ride.
yeah, ghost ride.
I need you to ghost ride.
And he's like, I can't just do it.
Yeah.
It's not something that I have control of right now. And then she uses her powers. Now, I will say her powers are kind of nebulous in some ways, where
Yeah.
they explained that she can see the dark side of people, but they don't explain how she can shapeshift or bring people's powers out. I'm assuming later in the run they'll explain it, but right now in Spark,
from what I gathered, she's just kind of like a Constantine, where she knows, spells, rituals, all these other things.
Yeah.
And she does, again, like you said, they're nebulous, but she does have powers. They're a little bit unexplained, but I think she's also just super knowledgeable and can cast spells, do rituals, things like that.
Yeah, she grabs Johnny's hand, and it catches on fire, and then he touches the car and it turns into a Ghost Rider
The
hearse.
transformation for the Ghost Rider hearse, I don't know if you noticed it. The flames that were painted on them catch fire, and then it fucking takes off. It's fucking cool.
That's awesome.
It is so fucking cool.
So they're essentially able to burn away all the fucking possessed animals, and they ride into Chicago.
Yeah.
That's when they reveal that Exhaust was the person, or the creature that set the animals on them, and he's basically like, oh, I've got your scent. I'm on my way.
Yeah.
Because he's been tasked with finding Johnny Blaze.
Then we cut back to Zeb.
Well, that's the mural. The mural.
Oh yeah. Well, they find
the shapeshifter chained up and everything like that.
Volca, that's her name.
Yeah, and I think they like literally go into Chicago on fire.
Yeah, and the guy who's in charge of the toll bridge, they drive by and he's like, "Oh, you have to pay the toll." And then when he looks down, he sees the head of a buck.
Yeah, and it's like all fucked up. And
Yeah,
like that.
And let me just say, that is terrifying. If I saw that, I'd quit my job the next day.
100%.
Yeah, I'd turn in my work outfit. I'm done. I'm not
fucking a flaming ass hearse driving by, and they put a fucking flesh skull deer. And let me tell you, the antlers on the fucking deer alone.
Yeah, it is wild that they did that. So they end up getting to Chicago. They pull into an alleyway, and Johnny's like, he's like sick. He tells her like, "You can't do that because I can't control him." Like, there's a chance he could come out and then he would just start causing mayhem.
Even like saying, even you're in danger.
Yeah,
as well.
because she's technically not innocent. She implies that like she's not an innocent person, but she says like, "I don't care what he does. I don't need you right now, Johnny. I need the Ghost Rider." And then I don't understand why, but she kisses him, and then that causes the Ghost Rider to come out.
I think that's just so Johnny is like, "I need you to summon the Ghost Rider again," and she's literally like, "Oh well, I thought you were fucking scared of him," and he's like, "I am," but he seems to know the source of this and where we need to go.
Yeah,
and so she's like, "Okay, I need you to touch me then," and he's like, "Okay, just be careful," and she's just like, "Well, that's not how I fucking do things," and just plants a fucking sloppy kiss on him.
yeah, and I think it's at this point that they're a couple.
I think it's implied. I don't think it's ever said that they are, but yeah. Then we have another fucking metal as fuck Ghost
Yeah, this
Rider
is the one where the chains are coming out of his mouth
Yeah,
and
and
his
it's
like
just-
flesh is
his
melting off.
eyeballs are like bulging and everything.
Yeah.
fucking cool. So fucking.
Yeah, and
metal.
he tells her to run.
Yeah.
And that's the end of issue 8. So we were coming up onto the last 2 chapters of this run, or not run, but of this arc. I will tell you that this is kind of where I was like, man, fuck this run.
Really?
Yeah, because so much stuff happens in this run, or in these last 2 issues, that I'm like, man, you needed at least 5 more issues
Yeah.
to tell this story. So Ghost Rider comes out, Talia is booking it, and then Ghost Rider says, bitch, you're getting back over here, and he wraps her in the chains and then pulls her close, and she essentially tells him like, you're focused on killing me. Why the fuck are you doing that? There are people dying, and there's somebody that's behind all of this.
Yeah.
You
She basically makes a deal with him. She's like, leave me alone and let me help you, and I will give you the all-you-can-eat sin buffet.
Yeah. Like she's essentially like, your whole thing is sin. You eat sin.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a buffet.
Yeah, which I think was a really cool interaction between them, because like again, like Ghost Rider and Johnny are not the same person.
No, they are two completely
They're two
different people.
completely different people, and I think it was really cool that like Johnny was already on board, but she still had to convince the Spirit of Vengeance to get on board with working with her as well. So I think it was a really cool interaction between them, and it does go to show that like even though the Spirit of Vengeance can very much be this like just force of nature that doesn't seem to think, it just goes, does what it's supposed to. This does show there is a level of intelligence to the Spirit of Vengeance. Of like, okay, she's sinned. I can have this one sinner, but she's also willing to give me
What I want.
what I want in a bunch of sinners. So it's more beneficial for my job as the Spirit of Vengeance to ally
The lesser
with
of
her.
2 evils.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we cut to Exhaust arriving in Chicago as well on a motorcycle that does not have flames, but spews exhaust everywhere. And it looks like whoever touches this exhaust or gets like consumed,
It like infects them.
it infects them, and it turns them into just bubbling goo and sometimes a demon.
And also, I think it just drives people crazy too.
Yeah. And then Johnny and Talia end up in this church in the middle of Chicago. They walk in, and it's a bloodbath. Like, there's just people fucking dead everywhere inside this church. And it's essentially Johnny's like, this wasn't a murder, it was a sacrifice.
Yeah, he says that the rider's been taking him, and every place he's taken them, they've all had one thing in common. Sacrifice.
Yeah.
So I think the Ghost Rider has been able to sense the different sacrifices happening for this plan of Black Hearts, I think. That's what I've interpreted this section of.
Yeah. And then at this church, a raven appears, and Talia knows it's Zeb. And essentially she's like, I thought you were dead. It's good to know that you're still here and we're not alone in all of this. And Zeb's essentially like, yeah, I'm not dead, and I'm going to take care of this. And then him, Volka, and then the worm guy.
I can't remember.
I don't remember his name either. It doesn't matter because they both fucking die anyways. They're at the
Hell's Backbone.
Hell's Backbone in Utah, and they're essentially going to confront Blackheart, fight him, and
Try to end this whole
try to end this before Johnny even gets involved.
But this is a Ghost Rider.
This is a Ghost Rider comic, and so of course they're all gonna fucking die. Or most of them are.
Yeah.
They end up, Talia and Johnny go into the Chicago subway, and Johnny is essentially like, I don't understand what you're really doing, and she just keeps telling him like, trust me. They end up finding a homeless man.
He's fucking insane.
Yeah, he's insane. He keeps saying pay all over again, and Johnny's like, well, this man obviously needs help. I need to help him. He approaches the guy, and the guy has pulled out all of his own teeth.
And put him in his little beggar's hut.
And he pulls out like a shank, and he's trying to kill Johnny, and he ends up falling onto the subway tracks
And gets hit.
Johnny's trying to save him, and the guy's like, we all have to pay someday, and then he gets fucking hit by the train. He explodes.
And as the train's passing, everyone in the car is like fucking killing each other.
Oh, yeah.
Like they've gone batshit.
Yeah. And let me just say this. Now, I don't know like exactly when this takes place in correlation to other events in the Marvel universe. If stuff like this was happening in Chicago, I can guarantee you that more than Ghost Rider would be involved in this story.
I don't know if it's Chicago wide though.
It could be concentrated.
I think it's concentrated to around Johnny, because I think because Exhaust ends up showing up here.
Yeah.
I think it's the effects of Exhaust
being in Chicago.
It
could be.
But because he says they're being driven by something to slaughter, and then we start getting another fucking Ghost Rider transformation.
Dope ass where chains are popping out of his chest, and then Ghost Rider just rips Johnny in half and pops out,
rips the skin off. All the chains kind of flying about. And he fucking hooks himself onto the train. And
he just rides that shit.
He's getting pulled by it. And
that's when Exhaust reveals himself and fights Talia.
Yeah, he ambushes Talia. And then it cuts to the train pulling up to like basically this demon fucking slaughterhouse.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. And it's a Ghost Rider train.
Well, then another train shows up.
Yeah. And it's like two separate trains.
Yeah, and it's fucking Ghost Riders turn this train into a fucking hell train, and it is so metal and badass because he's riding on top of it with like his chain as a fucking leash.
Yeah, let me just say, Corey Smith knocked it out of the
dude. Ball. The fucking art is so goddamn good.
He murdered this book in a good way. Like his art is just top notch. Like I would say that he is probably, in my opinion, one of the definitive Ghost Rider artists. Just with how cool he makes everything look.
It's so Ghost Rider. Fucking metal.
Yeah.
And then, so he runs over, he crashes it into this like abandoned station where these demons are like doing this slaughterhouse thing. And he just picks up a fucking chainsaw, turns it into a Ghost Rider. Yeah, Ghost Rider weapon. And just starts going to fucking town.
He like hooks his chain onto it and everything.
It's like straight Doom guy, rip and tear, you know.
So yeah, we leave off issue 9, the penultimate issue, with Ghost Rider fighting a horde of demons with the chainsaw, and then Exhaust has Talia by the throat and he's infecting her.
Yes.
And then we hit the finale of the arc, issue 10.
American Nightmare.
American Nightmare.
Callback.
And that's when Blackheart kind of explains his whole thing, like you had mentioned earlier, with there are these people that are in power that I needed to infect to kind of enact my shadow country, that kind of deal. But before we get into that speech, we go back to the subway entrance, and we see a bunch of rats scurrying out, and it's just a horde of rats, and then eventually it's a horde of people.
Yeah, symbolizing to the demons in Blackheart that the humans are the rats.
Yeah.
They're the equivalent to
Yeah.
rats to them.
But it also it's that, but it also symbolizes like, oh, Ghost Rider's back.
Yeah.
And he saved all of them.
Yeah.
Like he didn't let any of them die. And he even says like hold on. Let me see the line. Go, run as far and as fast as you can, or there will be hell to pay. That is so badass.
Yes. Metal. I know.
And he's
we've
got
probably,
the chainsaw in one hand.
I know we've probably said it a million times, but it is so fucking metal, dude.
Yeah.
It is so fucking
It is cool.
metal.
And then he ends up, he's still fighting demons.
Yeah.
It's not even like,
And they're like, there's only one of them.
yeah, there's one dude, kill him.
Yeah.
And the big guy, he rolls up to Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider just chainsaws him through the stomach.
And he's like holding him as he's getting chainsawed, and it's like, swarm him, get him.
and Ghost Rider, no, he's
Right up the middle, cuts him in fucking
yeah,
half.
fuck all of you. And again, he puts the chainsaw on the chain, and he starts swinging it around. It is so fucking cool. Let me tell you, I know it'll never happen because Warner Brothers owns both Mortal Kombat and DC Comics.
See, Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider in Mortal Kombat would be so fucking
cool.
sick. It would be so cool. But, we'll never get any crossovers like that now because we'll never get Predator and Xenomorphs ever again in Mortal Kombat now that Marvel owns them. Or not
I mean,
Marvel,
at
but,
least we got
Disney.
it for one game.
Yeah, we got it for one game. I want more, but
What they need to do is it would never happen. But just not even a Mortal Kombat game, just a fighting game where you just take iconic characters and have them brutalize each other.
yeah, no.
That would never happen.
Nope, you
But that'd
can't
be
do that.
so fucking cool.
You can't do that anymore. So yeah, and then like I mentioned earlier, Blackheart explains his whole thing where there's a senator who's going in for a dental treatment, and she tells her security guards to not come because it's just a routine thing, and then she gets infected. There's a bishop who told all of his subjects to go home early because he wanted to close by himself, and then he gets snatched up by a demon.
Yep.
There's a business owner who's trying to use the restroom, and
Which would be, that's the most terrifying thing in this book.
Yeah, that is the most terrifying thing.
Just this demon mouth maw with an eyeball and like sucky tentacles and everything in the toilet.
Yeah. So, and then he gets infected, and eventually he's like, I've gone far and wide from your most populated cities
To your farms.
to your factories. Like, I've infected all of it, and at this point, there's no going back. Like, I've won.
Yeah.
And then Zeb shows up, and Zeb's essentially like, all right, listen here, you porcupine-looking motherfucker. I'm putting an end to this. I don't care if the council gets upset with me for taking matters into my own hands. I'm just going to end it.
Yeah.
And essentially their fight starts.
And they're whooping his ass.
They're whooping his ass. And then we cut back to Ghost Rider. He's finishing up the demons. And then he sees Exhaust on the tracks. And he starts to fight him. And then they reveal that Talia is corrupted. She's not dead.
No.
And it is at this moment where Johnny basically tells the spirit, like, hey, you have to trust me. We are in this together. We are on the same side. There's no point in us working together if we can't trust each other. And the spirit lets him take over momentarily.
At first, it's resistant.
Yeah. And then he allows Johnny to take over. And Johnny essentially, like, talk no jutsus her.
Yeah.
he
Power
says,
of friendship.
Yeah, he powers of friendship to her, and he's telling her, like, you have to fight this. Like, you're a good person. You're better than this. And it works. She overpowers Exhaust's, like, possession, and she starts to revert back to normal, and they start to leave. And Exhaust is like, you're not going anywhere, but he loses track of them, and then they reappear and they're about to go toe to toe with them.
Friendship punch.
Yeah, the friendship punch. Talia's got her purple energy, and Johnny's got his flaming fist. And then it cuts back to the Devil's Backbone,
and they got
Zeb and the other night magicians got fucked. It looks like both the Worm Dude and Volca are dead. And Zeb's not looking too far off behind them.
Yeah.
And Blackheart is essentially like, I'm going to end this now. And then this is where it gets absolutely fucking confusing for me. Because you see Johnny leave Chicago. And then, in conjunction, at the same time, Blackheart is talking to Zeb. And then you see Johnny drive by some cornfields. Blackheart notices something off in the distance. Johnny drives past some mountains. And Zeb goes, hell yeah. And then it shows that big wide shot of Ghost Rider riding exhaust motorcycle, now possessed by, Ghost Rider. And I'm just sitting there like, how the fuck did he get there so quickly?
Well, all right. So this
and
is,
Talia's with him as well.
This is how I perceive it, right? Of like, there's two possible ways. One, in Ghost Rider form, I imagine he can go fast as fuck. You know what I mean? And I don't think Chicago is too far off from Utah. We should probably pull up a map.
I'm about to say, I'm about to Google that. You keep talking. I'm Googling that real quick.
I like, just from high school days of geography and things, I don't think Chicago's that far from Utah. I could be completely wrong. I'm probably completely wrong.
So Chicago to Utah, if we're just talking about a flight, it's about 3.5 to 6 hours. If you drive there, it is a 22.5-hour ride.
Okay.
There. I'm sorry. That is so fucking goofy. Come on. That cannot be explained away.
Look, I'm just saying, like, one, because they've done weird stuff with cuts in time already.
Yes, they have. They have.
So there's a chance that while it may seem like a split-second battle between Blackheart and them, for all we know,
it could have been days.
It could have been days.
Yeah.
It could have been hours, whatever.
Because these aren't just like normal people. Yeah, I can agree with that.
And then also the fact, again, Ghost Rider in his ghost form, he doesn't have to stop for gas. He doesn't get hungry, anything like that. He can just keep going.
He looks back at Talia. You want to stop for a big gulp?
But
Stop by this Circle K.
You get what I'm saying? But also,
There's a Buc-ee's we're about to pass by. Do you want to stop?
but also it's just supernatural shit. Yeah. I think if you question too much of like how to get there, I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of this issue is like just meant to kind of mess with you a little bit, in the sense of like, it's weird, like it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a very good enough, suspension of belief for things that like it doesn't bother me. I can understand how it bothers you. I genuinely do. But for me, I don't give a fuck.
I know.
Like,
you don't care.
it's fucking cool.
Yeah. No, it is cool. Like, at the end of the day, like, it is a technically cool thing.
Yeah.
Because I think what makes it not as big of a deal for a lot of people, and I would say to me in some degree, is that while we are seeing this passage of time with him traveling, Johnny does have this really cool monologue where he basically talks about how, like, I used to think that the spirit of vengeance was a curse and that it was just a means to an end, and that this was kind of my punishment for all the bad things I did in my life. But then he says, like, but that's not necessarily the case. That like monsters exist, and sometimes you have to become a monster to fight monsters.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And it is cool because he does say, like, there is no Johnny Blaze. There is no spirit of vengeance. There is only the Ghost Rider, which is awesome.
Yeah. So he says, I like the fact that they bold in that narration. There isn't Johnny Blaze and the spirit of vengeance. There's the Ghost Rider. Like, I agree. Yeah, it's like there's not two individuals.
Yeah.
It's one.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And
So he rolls up to Hell's Backbone. Zeb gets out of the way. Blackheart tries to hit Johnny with this like blue energy blast. Ghost Rider catches it and crushes it. So I don't know if it was like a physical object or something.
I think maybe he like crystallizes it,
Maybe.
and crushes
Yeah.
it or something.
And then, all right, and here's an issue, because this kind of will circle back to Exhaust as well. He essentially says, like, you took me off the road. Now it's my turn to return the favor. And he says, you're already on the exit ramp. And then Hellfire just rains down upon
Yeah, he's like, now go to hell.
Yeah. And he says, now go to hell. And just Hellfire rains down upon the mountain. And Blackheart's defeated. He's done.
I will say that's my biggest complaint as far as like pacing and things.
Is that he's the main villain. He gets beat in one page.
Yeah, one page.
Yeah.
I was very much looking forward to a cool
fight.
fight between them.
Yeah.
Granted, it's badass that he just like
One shot him.
he nukes this motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like straight up nukes him back to hell.
And I didn't mention it when it happened. They did the same thing with Exhaust.
Yes.
Where they started the fight, and then the next time we see Johnny and Talia, they've already beaten Exhaust, and they have his motorcycle and they leave.
Yeah.
I hate that. I absolutely despise it. If you're going to introduce villains, you need to fight them.
I agree with you to an extent, right? So I think that cut with Exhaust would have been okay if there was an actual fight happen between Blackheart and Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Because it's like saying like, okay, Exhaust, you're not the main villain.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like you're an afterthought. The main villain is Blackheart. Like, and we had a little bit of a fight between Exhaust and everything, but again, I think it's more kind of like that fight is used as even more of a like getting Johnny and Ghost Rider and the Spirit of Vengeance to like mesh, you know, because he's fighting with Ghost Rider in his head to save Talia. So I think that's more what that fight is than anything. But I agree there could have definitely been some more pages for a fight with Exhaust, and definitely more pages with a fight with Blackheart.
Reading it, it felt as though they wrote it in a way where they thought they were about to get canceled, like the book was about to get canceled, and so they rushed to the end of that arc, because it definitely feels like they needed at least 2 or 3 more issues with the arc. Like this was a 10-issue run.
Yeah.
It feels like this arc should have been 13. 13 issues.
I can see that.
And it really feels that way after the fight is over and they go back to like FBI headquarters. Because like essentially Zeb is like, he's gone, and Talia's like, the fight's over. And Johnny just says the fight's not over. It's never over. But the difference is like, I'm here. Like I'll be here to stop him.
Well, he includes everyone.
Yeah.
He's like, that's why we're here.
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about Zeb and Talia.
Yeah, like they're a team now.
Yeah.
They're supposed to work together,
then-
which I do like that.
I do like it too. And then obviously some time passes. Like, you know, they're back at the headquarters
Washington,
and
D.C.,
everything.
yeah.
And basically Talia gets fired because she
Yeah.
spent all the fucking money that was given
and
to her.
Agent Wilmer's fucking gone.
Yeah. And so they're like, yeah, we're going to let you go. And she basically says kind of, there was a moment earlier in the issue that, you know, Johnny's like, I'm going to do this regardless.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't have a choice in being the Ghost Rider and things like that. So like, this is what I'm dealing with. And she basically comes around and is, you know, tells him, because Johnny's waiting for her. And she tells him like, yeah, I just got fired. They didn't take the whole like thing well.
Yeah.
And she's like, but I'm going to do this shit for like free.
Yeah, because that's what she was going to do anyway.
Yeah, it was going to be what she does. And it kind of definitely solidifies like kind of their partnership of like, they're in this.
And they are a couple at this point.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. No, I can see that, and it's good. I don't mind that.
I find it nice that like,
it's a change of pace.
yeah, and Johnny's sitting there watching like some kids on the playground, probably thinking about that whole like Hayden Falls kind of like
what his life was. But
yeah.
it doesn't. It definitely doesn't come off as him like. It's not somber. You can tell that he's kind of at peace.
Yeah, he's at peace, almost optimistic.
Yeah,
and
like
that's
maybe
why
he can have that.
I think that's why I really thought the theme for this was like him on a road trip to find himself
Yeah.
and figure out who he is, because this whole moment makes me feel like he figured out who he was. He figured out he is the Ghost Rider. He is here to bring, an end to evil and protect the innocent and things. So that's why I feel like there's this major theme of him, being on this trip to find himself.
And then we leave off with Johnny and Talia and Zeb, because Zeb is technically with him, but it's like his Raven form, and it's essentially just Johnny saying like we're not done. Like we'll just keep going and we'll keep running with it. And then we come to this character. I think her name is Dr. Dayu. I think
Dayu, yeah.
Yeah, and she's talking to Director Crux, the
because
FBI.
after Talia, almost immediately after Talia gets fired and leaves, he calls this Dr. Dayu, whatever. And she's like doing fucking experiments on demons.
Yeah, and I am assuming now. I might need to reread the dialogue, but I am assuming that they are trying to create some type of like supernatural super soldier type deal, or maybe trying to control the Ghost Rider.
Find some way to probably battle demons in general.
Yeah. And that's when they reveal that they've been doing all these experiments on demons, like you said. And then the last page reveal to end the arc is that they have Danny Ketch strapped up to this chair.
And it's like he's producing like hellfire into this, like, I don't know, like kind of like containment thing or whatever. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, but it's essentially like the U.S. government is trying to find a way to have their own Ghost Rider. That's what it comes off as.
Yeah,
to me.
And it definitely is a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
to like
it's a
lead
cliffhanger.
into the rest of.
Yeah, and that's why
run.
it makes me feel like these last 2 pages were added after the fact, after the story was already written.
Probably because they realized they were still going to get more runs.
Yeah, because at this point, I think Ghost Rider was very popular in 2022. Because I believe that's when this run started, was 2022, and Marvel came to Benjamin Percy and said like, no, you're doing good things. We want you to keep going. And he was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Well, I kind of already wrapped up the thing I wanted to write about. And they're like, well, just keep going.
Yeah, just keep writing.
And that's essentially the end of Ghost Rider Shadow Country.
Yeah.
Very mixed opinions. I don't think I feel as strongly about it now that I've had a chance to talk to you.
Yeah.
I think it's less of a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
The pacing, I think, is my main issue with it, specifically towards the latter half, and more specifically the last 2 issues.
Yeah. I loved it.
I think they did an amazing job characterizing Johnny. It makes him a very interesting character. I like Talia. I like Zeb. I like all the characters they introduced. The only characters I feel like they are a little disappointing is Exhaust, because he definitely feels like a new villain who's just supposed to be here for this run.
Yeah.
And then Blackheart, not because I don't like Blackheart, but because
they just misused him.
They misused him and they took him out. And again, Mason and I have not read the entire run, the full 21 issues of this run. So there's a chance that in the next arc, they bring back Blackheart and he's like the main villain again.
Yeah.
So like they could completely fix all of our issues with Blackheart being used in this arc, but we're just talking about Shadow Country right now. We're not talking about the Danny Ketch stuff. We're not talking about what comes after that.
I loved this. It was great. It was right up my alley. All the dark and kind of serious shit, the weird shit. I fucking loved it. Now, granted, again, I also had some issues with the last couple chapters. Like the fight with Blackheart. Super disappointed. Yes, it's badass that he one-shotted Blackheart, but at the same time, like there's been this tension and build-up.
Yeah. Like he's a superhero. Let him do some superhero stuff.
Yeah, like let him have his big fight with his big villain, you know. The pacing, you're right, is a little off, but at the same time, like for me as a reader, I'm in it for the ride.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't find the pacing issue to be so blatantly bad that it took me out of the story.
Right.
I have a pretty good suspension of belief ability, I guess, where, you know, like, you know, your issue with the whole him traveling from Chicago to Utah, like seemingly instantaneously, you know, I just chalk it up as supernatural shit, and, you know, just fucking, I roll with it.
Yeah.
But it was, I loved it. This is the type of shit I love to read, hence why I like Image and things like that. Like this shit is right up my alley, and I very much want to finish this run.
Yeah, if you want to keep reading it, we'll finish it.
We can. I mean, I'll probably do it even if we don't do it for the podcast.
You'll
this
just
shit
read in your own personal.
Yeah, this shit was dope.
No,
I loved it.
The next Ghost Rider we'll read. We'll read the rest of Benjamin Percy's run, because it would be wrong of me to criticize this first arc and not
do the rest of it.
Let him finish his story.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely. I don't know when we'll do it, but we'll definitely do it. Because I don't think the last volume is out, and I don't want to collect it in single issues because I'd have to go hunt for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, since you said Image, I guess that's a good thing that our next episode is going to be God Country.
Yeah.
Which is written by Danny Cates.
I'm so fucking excited, dude.
Yeah, I'm very excited because that is one of my favorite stories ever written. God Country is so good. I can't wait for you to read it.
To kind of bring it back before we start getting into possibly future stuff or whatever, I just remember when you handed me these and you're like, I just want you to know, like halfway through this, shit just goes weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, that makes me so excited to fucking read these.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't like weird shit for weird shit. I'm not necessarily like artsy with thing like media I digest, but at the same time I kind of am. So like if you're weird but I can see the artistic vision in it, I fucking love that shit.
Yeah.
But if you're just being weird to be weird, then that's kind of fucking stupid. But I loved this. This was great. It had me hooked since fucking chapter 1. I'm like, I've never really been a huge Ghost Rider fan. Like I've always,
But
been
now
like,
you are.
But like this got me kind of hooked on Ghost Rider as a character. I'm not gonna
cool.
lie. Like, you know, it's Flaming Skull guy, metal as fuck. You know, I'm like, that's dope. That's a cool looking character. Never really got into it. Nicolas Cage movies, they're meh.
First one's meh. The other one's awful.
Yeah, the second one definitely not great.
Yeah.
And it's Nicolas Cage movies at that time, which were just in general not good.
Yeah, but he was everywhere.
Yeah, he was everywhere. But yeah, so like not a whole lot of exposure. And then reading that first issue, I was like, this is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm hooked. I love Ghost Rider now. This is great.
Yeah.
So they did a great job with these. I will say, if you are a reader that is a bit queasy on the gore side of things,
You
and
might not like it.
and like body horror stuff, yeah, you might not be a fan of this one because there is a good amount of both. Yeah, so if you're a bit queasy on that part, I do not recommend this necessarily. But if you think you can get past it, by all means, read it.
Yeah, I definitely will always say, like, read the story yourself and come up with your own conclusion. Just because I was not a huge fan of it doesn't mean that it's a bad story. And, you know, there's going to be times where Mason's going to love a story and I'm going to love a story. And it turns out that it's an absolute trash story. And for some reason, we like it.
Yeah. And
But there are
if you
plenty of
listen
stories
to
like
if
that.
you listen to it and we discussed it on the podcast and you hate that story and we love it, I'm sorry, you probably just wasted your time.
You just listen to two assholes talk about a story that they don't like. But no, yeah, I'll definitely put links in the description of the books. Of course, pick it up.
Buy your physical,
Buy your
support
physical,
local.
support local, or if you can't make it out to a local shop, the link will have the Amazon thing in it. You know, or if you don't like physical, you can always get a subscription to Marvel. I believe it's called Marvel Unlimited. You can read it on there because they have it categorized. But yeah, that's essentially it. Like I said, our next episode is going to be God Country by Donny Cates. Very big writer, especially in Marvel, because he is responsible for, you know, the Venom run that I'm a huge fan of, which is cool because I don't like Venom.
I love Venom.
It's not that I don't like Venom. It's just I think he was overused a lot. And I
can see that.
Yeah. They've used him in a lot of stuff. But we'll cover Venom one day, just not now. But we are definitely next episode we are going to be covering God Country.
I also feel like we should say we kind of took out some manga stuff that we were planning on doing for the moment, just because we got to workshop and figure out how we're going to cover it.
Yeah.
Because the stuff we're doing right now are smaller runs, fewer chapters, but we were planning on going over like volumes of like Naruto and Berserk.
The first 4 volumes of both.
And that's a lot of shit.
And let me just say, this was only 10 issues. We're already reaching the 3-hour mark on this episode.
Yeah.
So maybe that's more on us, where we need to stop going over every single little detail. But I feel like if we don't, that's not a review.
We're workshopping it, and hopefully we can
still learning.
I mean, even if we might have to just break it into parts.
Yeah, that's. I'm definitely open to the idea of doing that as well.
So we took those up out of the lineup. Do we have anything that we've refilled those spots with, or are we still working on that?
Still working on that. I know some stuff got moved up because like after God Country, we're doing Superman.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do Superman Secret Origins. I just don't know what we're gonna cover instead of Berserk and Naruto. I'll figure it out, and obviously when I figure it out, we'll
figure it.
Yeah,
we'll work it. But yeah,
that
bottom line, read this fucking comic.
Yeah, definitely read it.
It's fucking great. It's metal as fuck.
So I don't think there's anything else we need to talk about.
Nope.
I think that's the end of the episode.
Thank you if you've made it this far and we're listening. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Just listening to our 2 dumbasses talk about a flaming skull, man.
Yep. Alrighty, guys. Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Comics with Friends. I am your host, Ethan. Met with my best bud and co-host, Mason.
Metal on.
And this has been the bi-weekly podcast where 2 best buds get together, talk about comics they like, maybe some comics that one of them doesn't like so much, and talk about flaming skull guys ripping people apart. So have a great rest of the day, week, month, whatever you want. And we will see you next time.